we skip ahead.
Yeah, no, for whatever reason, it's like it's a different interaction that's happening, right? Like it's almost like they assume that that video is speaking directly to that person.
Well, now they're being addressed.
And I don't think it's just like for me. Like I probably think it probably works that way for all vlogs, right? Like where it's like this person is asking me what I think, right?
I think it's one of the reasons that those surveys work on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
Like just because they're like I don't know. It's nice to be asked what you think about stuff, I think.
Is it?
Well,
No, you know,
I
time
find
to time-
those annoying.
Yeah,
and I'm
same.
like, how can I not get another one of these?
Yeah, just like Instagram, there's always this this picture that pops up. It's like, do you like this one or this one?
Well-
and I'm like, go fuck yourself. Oh, go.
There we go.
so it begins.
Well, when I first started doing YouTube, it was like I didn't know exactly what I was going to even do with it. It was just kind of like I knew I was about to go through a rapid change process, and it
A
might
metamorphosis.
it might be good to have some kind of documentation of that, where it was like I don't even remember what I said in most of those videos, and there's probably 50 of them from that time span.
Well, we've done 20 episodes of this, and I don't know what
Yeah.
I've said.
Yo,
But like, I'm more likely to watch back one of these podcasts because I
Yeah.
enjoy listening to conversations more than myself talk.
That's
you know
fair.
what I mean? Like, so I have never listened through those vlogs, but like, you could like see step by step as my body is going from old tattoos to new tattoos.
Yeah.
Right. Every step of the way, and my thought process and justifications and some of the stupid things that annoyed me that people were starting to say. Right, that's when I was starting to get weird comments about like I'm changing my race and like crap like that, right? And like my initial reactions to being tagged places because like that wasn't happening before that much. Because I was like I think like 20 something thousand, so still a big account, but like I wasn't getting featured all over the place for this
Yep.
insane story, right? And like articles and the crap that happens, right? And so you were getting like, I guess, an introspection into what that journey was like. And that was really all I had in mind for it. It was kind of like, okay, now what? Right? So I stopped doing those because I hated them. I thought they were terrible. But people missed them. Like, they're like, hey, are you going to do any more of the vlogs? I was like, no. I'm doing better things now.
Isn't it weird that you can't pick what people like?
Yeah, it is weird.
Like you think that you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is it, and then the thing that you didn't really care about is the thing that's like, gets more attention.
Well, that's what I always tell people too. Is like just because you like it doesn't mean everyone else will.
Yeah.
Like if you're making something and it's just something you like, that's fine. But understand that it's a form of masturbation, right? Like it's not going to help anyone else out in any way. Like if you're just going, well, I really like it, and it's getting one view, and it's from me. And I'm giving it a thumbs up every time. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's not going to grow, right?
Well, yeah, it's like you're making it for your own enjoyment, or
Yeah.
you're making it for others. I think a lot of people a lot of people get that confused. It's like this idea of like, oh, I'm gonna make it for others, but they're really making it for themselves.
Well, the idea of social media is like, it's odd because it's like, I'm sharing me,
Yeah.
right? But then it becomes a ladder, and it's like, how do I climb the ladder?
Yeah.
Right. So just sharing a nice picture of Kevin sitting holding the mic right now, it might get a smattering of interest, but it probably isn't going to get
Damn right it will.
3,500 shares. You know what I mean?
Not so likely.
Aw.
We can try though.
No, it's not that it's not a good picture. It's just almost not.
Let's prove him wrong.
Oh.
Okay.
He's
done.
yeah, that was kind of insulting.
Yeah.
Let's
No.
Let's take this
Because
out
like
here.
even a
whatever.
nice picture of me just sitting here talking on the mic isn't going to either. It's almost like you have to like, how can I make this gimmicky enough that it will spread, right? Like you have to have some weird thing. Like a friend of mine is like kind of an older guy, and he's not a bad looking dude, but his thing is he paints his nails different ways each picture kind of thing. Like he'll have like a little skull on this nail and this one's pink for some reason. And people have almost gotten used to it and they're like, oh, check out his nails. You know what like at first it was weird, but now it's become like a weird gimmick that he does just to be a little different every time. So it's not just the same picture over and over again. because it gets hard to innovate it all the time, right? Like, you almost have to be like, okay, say you did 3 portraits in a row, and they were all girl faces,
Yeah.
and they're all the same hair color style.
Right.
Like, you can't do that over and over again and expect people to like it every time.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually, people go that. I'm actually finding that weird now. Some of my less professional looking pieces are ones I do that are not my main style. I'll do something in a different style, and it'll get twice as many likes just because it's not what I do every day.
Yeah.
Well, and it's weird
like to see
because you
that.
have to have a steady stream of the similar content, but it can't be the same.
That's right. Exactly.
And it makes it a real headache to keep doing it all the time because it's like, okay, you start to get a little bit jaded over it eventually, where it's like you're almost like you're feeding an animal every day.
Oh,
And then when it
that's
doesn't
exactly
like
how I
it,
feel.
it's like, okay, it worked yesterday. It's the problem today.
At the same time, you could look at that like, say you didn't pay attention to the actual numbers of it and weren't like trying to adjust it cognitively, but say it just had like an influence on your behavior. Do you think that would cause you to do new things?
I was going to say this. This is where I was bridging to.
All right,
It's like,
let's bridge.
I was building into this from. There's this weird idea that I've thought of a lot. Like, without social media, what does everyone look like today?
Oh man.
Like, I know I blacked out my right arm before I got really heavy into Instagram. I was really small, didn't care much when I did that. And I was more or less content with that. But I was seeing more and more blackout online, and I was getting more and more like, I could do more, right? I could do more. It wasn't like, oh, I want to chase this fad, because I already had some. But it was like, the overexposure to that idea, probably like a Pied Piper, and you end up doing more of that.
Right.
Because it's more of your interest, right? Feeding you along. And I was thinking about, like, I get comments all the time, when are you going to black out your palms? Like, when are you going to... And I'm like...
That's not a thing.
Well, I've seen people do it.
It's gonna be gross.
It's not a good thing.
No.
So, like, the way it works is poorly, but I know one guy who has his palm done, like, the whole thing, and it's like a deep gray, right?
Yep.
And that's the best I've ever seen.
I'm picturing taking a 14 liner and going across your hand one
by
line
one.
at a time for about 6 sessions.
So the way he did it, because he's a body piercer, is he would just, on his off days, he would do a small section,
Yeah, that's smart.
and he would stick poke it in.
Oh, there we go. That makes
And
sense.
Little trauma, right?
Yeah.
And you just have,
well,
like...
maximum depth, little trauma, and with that method, you're getting full depth each time.
Right, so he would have, say, this much of his palm done.
Yeah.
And then next day off, maybe right here. And then that's not too much to work around.
And
And
then
then
you can still live your life because your palm
Yep.
isn't a...
and then he's over here the next time, and then he's here, then he's somewhere here.
Yeah.
Then by the time now this is ready to go again, and he's just kind of like a passion project, picking away at it. But like, I seen a guy recently who did a blackout palm, and he's like showing it off proudly, and it looks like, how can I say this politely?
Plaid.
It looked like he had a skin disease.
Yeah, of course.
Like, it was like big patches and then little dusty speckles and then like a giant amount of black here and then like some stuff that didn't work here. And he's just like, big smile. And I'm like, well, congratulations, your hand looks terrible. Like, and
Which is exactly what we expected here.
how many times are you going to do this before it even looks half decent or even as good as it did before you even started?
You're doing...
5 at least.
Yeah, you're filling cracks in the wall for the next 6 months here. Like,
And-
good work.
So my thinking is like, I've answered this question a number of different ways, just kind of depending on the day when people are like, when are you going to black out your palms? As if it's just an inevitability, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe one day I'll get to it. Maybe one day. I'm like, no, because this is the line for me. I'm not doing things that don't make sense, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for a cook who's always using his hands to take 2 weeks off 10 times in a row to get something that looks maybe worse than it did to begin with.
Well, even after that 2 weeks, you're gonna have to use your hands a lot. It's gonna destroy those faster.
Naturally.
I
you're gonna-
consider it luck that I got this to stay
It honestly is.
and my hands to look as good as they do.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like at the point where I do want to do these again, one more time each, maybe 2 more times eventually.
You almost
Yeah.
need a stick and poke kit for those knuckles.
Yeah. Well,
That'd be
I
almost
mean, this
ideal.
one looks, I think that's almost as good as I could ever ask for, but this one's got more. But this is only 2 passes and this is 3.
Oh, I mean, it's knuckles.
Right.
Welcome to the jungle. It's
But
gonna
like-
take some time.
Welcome to the Knuckles.
My thing is like, I'm probably do them again a couple times over the next couple years. Like, I
Yeah.
want to do them again next year. But like, that's a week off anytime I do something like that because I can't even move my hand. And the only thing that's telling me you need to black out your palms is social media,
The interwebs.
which is like a lot of people might be persuaded by that, right? Like, I should
Of
do
course. Of course.
See, my
It's like
social
a-
media has so much less swing on me. My
You're-
stuff is so
you're,
much more like, I'm going to put this here, and then I'll be over there.
You're a little more old-minded, which is not a bad thing. And you are too,
Yes.
as we've talked about. Where I feel like I'm kind of like torn, I guess, because I'm using it so much.
Yeah.
But like, I don't really feel inclined
Well,
to
you
take part.
you speak the language.
Yes,
That's
yes,
the difference
exactly.
here.
You're bilingual. We're like we know a couple phrases.
We
But,
have,
like,
these, we have
people,
these
like-
social media conversations, and we're sitting here like, yes, tell us more about the internet,
Oh,
Jeremy.
algorithms.
Yes.
My old ears.
People like a generation behind, say early 20s, like they're full in for this. Like they don't speak any other language.
I know.
They're not bilingual. They are only speaking that language.
Yeah, like talking to my nieces and nephews about this stuff. Wow. Like they are just a different it's a different language entirely.
Yeah.
And like I kind of see glimpses of it, but their parents don't understand any of what they're saying. Any of it. It's crazy. But, you know, I guess that's probably the way it was when we were kids. Our parents probably didn't understand what the hell we were talking about with our N64s and our
So my
guess-
mind goes to like, do I become this blackout king that people have labeled me as without social media?
We could make you a black crown.
I would love that. Or, and do I still stretch my ears as much as I have without that? I'll post a picture of this after, and it'll get all this reaction. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to even tell anymore because I was doing this stuff long before. Like, I first stretched my cartilage back in like 2006. But like, I don't know if I would have gone to the extent that I have now because social media is it's almost like a taint that gets inside your head. And it's like, if you know people are going to be watching, and I've created this expectation that change is always going to happen. Like the improvements or modifications are going to keep coming, right? So then it's like, okay, what do I do next? Well, now I'm stretching my forward helixes.
What if you filled all of those holes with sex toys?
That would be
That's
an
not my
interesting
first time
picture.
saying that line.
That would be an interesting picture.
I sure would.
you'd get some attention.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would be desired, but it would be some attention.
And some negative
And
attention
some
too.
breakage, for sure.
Oh yeah, lots of
Are
breakage.
you
Yeah.
kidding? Oh, a ton. An absolute ton.
No,
You can
we'll-
see all of my sex toy ear work on OnlyFans.
Yeah, yeah, it's a whole thing, and there's anything you want, anything you want.
He's
anything
just
you
dumping
can-
milk on his face.
I've seen
it
so
all
many
around.
girls where it's like, check out my milk set on OnlyFans. I'm like, I'm not.
Nope.
I don't want to see your
No,
milk
honey.
set on OnlyFans.
At the same time, the one thing I thought, like, because I always think of those situations of, like, if I was a girl, like, they have,
If
yeah, if I want to. But, like, if you were to go on, like, OnlyFans and just do, like, put your feet out there.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a bunch of guys that like feet
Oh
for some
yeah,
odd reason.
that's like the most requested thing.
Yeah, which I don't understand for the life of me. But capitalizing on that, I'm in full support of. Because it's like, whatever, it's your feet. Who cares? And then you get money from it.
yeah,
That's what I would do.
yeah, definitely.
Well, my
Yeah.
second fiance was
If I had
always
nice
trying to
feet.
find ways to make money online, but she didn't want to get into that sort of avenue. I was always just like, just don't even check your messages and
Yeah.
just sell your socks. Like, sell your underwear and just be done with it. Have a picture of you wearing it, and then Here it is. You can buy it.
Yeah.
Don't even put a price on it. Just let them bid. You can do stuff like that on like Freelancer.
Yep.
Or like pick $100 for the nicest armpit picture. Right? Like
That's
weird stuff.
Like,
There's
That is
all kinds
bizarre.
of weird ways to make money online if you have no scruples.
So my question is,
how do you get into it?
yeah, where do I sign up? No,
If you took the picture just right, you could probably convince the world you had a woman's armpit.
oh, I guarantee I could.
No,
Right.
any guy shaves with his armpit. I think you're good.
I think we had just enough shape
But-
here that it even like cast
So-
just
Just
the
the
right
nice
shadow
shadow.
to
For
think
the
that I've got
armpit
some bosom.
fetishists out there, because there are, I had a guy run rampant through Sarah's pictures because
Yeah.
he found her on my page, and he was like making like weird emojis, and then he went on her page and like any picture where her arm was up, he was like making inappropriate comments about
Really?
her armpit, and I
That's
was
a thing?
it's a thing. And I said to my coworker like the next day because I was more curious than offended because it's gross,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah,
like
I'd
it's
be
also
curious.
gross in a weird way where it's
Yeah.
like what is.
It's the same thing with the feet. It's like, what?
But I
Ew.
said to him, I'm like, okay, so I get that anything can be fetishized, but like, is there a curvature you're looking for? Is it like a certain
there
skin to
any
hair
specificity to
ratio?
it?
Like, what is it that makes a good armpit versus a bad armpit?
Do you think it's because it's like taboo? Like an underarm is like a thing that's always hidden?
No, I think it's like you can ask someone.
Smell?
No, this is a very heteronormative thing to ask someone, a little bit sexist, but like, are you a tits guy or an ass guy? Right? Like everyone's
It's
been
either
asked
one or
that
the other.
question. Is
Nobody in the locker room's like underarms, man.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but someone is.
Little
They just don't
thigh.
say it
I
out
like a little
loud.
thigh.
Yes, someone in that locker room is like, I'm actually into feet. You
Because
know,
you'd never say that.
that's right. I wouldn't say it out loud
Because
but
it's
on the
not-
internet, they're allowed to say that.
Right, yeah. It's
But
where
it's
they rip
still-
and press it everywhere else.
It's still seen as weird even online unless they're in that avenue.
Yeah,
There's an avenue for that. There's all kinds of girls.
which
that
is
just-
where they say it.
Which is where they say it. But if you do it on a normal picture, it's like, whoa, this guy's weird. You know what I mean? Like, check this guy out.
some chick in a bikini on a tattooed girl's page, and the dude is like, check out her armpits. He's gonna get voted down
Yeah, that's not going to play well.
on
Yeah.
Insta Reddit, I guess.
That's so like, I mean, part of me is fascinated by that because like, I don't get where that comes into play. Like, obviously, that has to be something when you were growing up.
I'm sure
Maybe?
it's something you've seen when you were growing up, or even seen often when you were growing up.
Underarms.
But I mean, I'm not. You like what you like, right?
Yeah.
Fine, whatever.
It could have been his first sexual experience. Afterward, he was cuddled up in this girl's armpit, and it was just really cozy and nice.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now, whenever he feels that sensation or thinks about that, he is transported back to that. He has these warm, fuzzy, Freudian memories, and armpits are kind
It's
of
gotta
that
be
gateway for him.
deep-seated, because
Yeah.
it's not like we're selling armpits to anyone. Like, it's not coming externally.
Yeah, exactly.
Like those sorts of things happen internally. It's like when they were trying to say that like gay isn't a real thing and that it's like not a gene or whatever, and you can't.
Man, how crazy! Like, we lived through all that.
Right.
All that.
Yeah.
But like to
insanity.
me, it's like I think it's internal. Like if you like what you like, and there's some reason why, but like it's not projected on you from outside. I don't think.
But I guess what I'm saying is that
Except
I think
tits and ass.
I
Those are
think
the
a lot
only
of it-
things that were like these things, like these. Here's
Well, but-
boobs. Here's bum.
But there is like
Social pressures.
no, not even that. There's
experiential based.
there's a biological aspect to that one though, right? Like the
Oh, yeah.
large
Especially
bosoms
breasts.
and
Oh, yeah,
wide
goodness.
hips.
Those-
and
those are obvious.
those are those like procreatorial.
Which is
Yeah,
why
you
they
look for a
are
good baby
so.
mama.
Yeah.
Which is why they're so pushed too, right? Because
Yeah.
we all
Capitalize on
We
it.
all we all feel
We all have
the evolutionary.
Yeah, we all have those draws, and then we're force fed it over and over again from a very young age.
Yeah.
Although-
so now we're just drawn right to it.
One of the weirdest things that I always thought, because like you remember when we were growing up and how like the image of a woman was like this like tiny person, like this like the supermodel thing was basically like you have no shape.
thin and tall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was always fascinated by that because it's like that's not what I find.
That's not what I
attractive
like
at all.
either.
And most guys are in the similar thing. Like we tend to prefer curvier women.
Yep.
And it's for that reason because procreationally, like if you have birthing hips and all that stuff. But like I always found that so strange, where it was like this whole industry that was based around sex sells and producing this inaccurate body image wasn't from men saying that was the good thing.
But the funny thing is women will feel pressured to look like that, and it's like, oh, for men that no.
But we weren't asking for that.
I
think that's one of the reasons Kim Kardashian broke the mold on that.
Yeah.
Because it was all of a sudden like, oh no, that's more natural, even though now it's not. Now
well,
she's
it's gotten very
with,
weird now.
Yeah, now it's gone into diaper butt.
Like when people are talking about body mods, I mean, there you go.
That's the ultimate body mod.
That's the ultimate body mod, right?
Yeah.
You've changed all of your dimensions.
Yeah.
Yet I've put something through my nose, and somehow I'm a weirdo.
Oh, dude, if anybody has a problem with anything that you've done, and then also likes Khloe Kardashian, who is now again a different person, have you seen her new face?
I've never seen any Kardashian faces.
I feel
Dude,
like
it's
looking
crazy.
a little different today.
It's
I'll get a
crazy.
new nose.
They are entirely different humans from when they started.
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't. But like, it's not
I
like they were.
intentionally avoid any scenario where I would ever have to see their faces.
Okay, to be honest,
Yep, Siri heard that one. I don't know why.
To be honest, what I always get is I see it through other podcasts talking about it when they're when they talk about.
Oh
topical
yeah,
things.
like Rogan will bring her up or whatever, right? Have you seen this bitch's face?
Yeah, and then
That
the
kind of
most
thing.
recent one, I guess she won some sort of award, which I don't know how you win awards during this time of everybody's quarantined. I don't understand that.
I don't know.
We'll just keep doing award shows.
Yeah.
What's the point?
They simulate an audience, and it's like this.
Everyone
is
wants
ridiculous.
attention, man, and money.
It really
you gotta keep
is.
feeding the machine.
Yeah, it's man, we live in a weird time.
Yeah,
but I think that's uber body mod right there.
Yeah,
because
well,
it's no
sure.
longer your body, and you still have the ability for all that shit to reject. Like a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, I've talked about my coworker multiple times and his online endeavors.
Yep.
And he's
With
created
the penis enlargement process.
virtually. Yes, because
Okay.
he's
What are we
not the
saying?
best looking.
Got
He's
excited.
not the best looking fella,
Uh-huh.
but he's a great guy, and he's very intelligent and very charming.
Oh, is this
Very-
the one that had the crush?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now he has a girlfriend again. He's done this. He's had 3 women in the last month and a half. He hasn't had one woman in 20 years.
Wow.
It's all online, and now he has this this character that he plays.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really that much of a character. It's just an exaggerated version of him in an anime body that looks like a handsome teacher. And his voice through that body that he's created is very attractive to online women.
And this is translating to girls in the real world.
He's now got a relationship with another girl or third one. And she does the same thing he does, but I guess he hasn't showed me her picture, but he says that she's actually very attractive in real life. She has a voice kink. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, okay.
That's a thing?
Yeah, and remember how I said he has a voice for radio, right?
Man, we're diverse.
So like his voice is paying the bills now for him. Like
okay.
his
Sexually.
voice is based. Well, he's making money on it too.
No.
but not. He hasn't started making a ton of money yet. But he's getting enough to where he can take a week off or a
If
day
he's made
off.
35 cents, I'm impressed.
Yeah, exactly.
He's made a couple $100s in the last few months.
There we go.
Wow.
That's impressive on the internet.
Cool.
Because he'll do these like birthday streams and like Halloween streams and stuff, right?
Huh.
But anyway, to get the initial cost of investment to get your avatar made is a bit, because you have to have it drawn by an artist, and then it has to be animatronic in a way where it can move and like actually,
Yeah, you have to get it animated.
yeah, so that it can follow what you're saying,
Goodness.
right? Like it mouths your words.
Wow.
But anyway, he's basically this character when he's online. He's not in his physical body. So his attributes coupled with this good-looking anime character is basically like this knockout 10 out of 10 guy. But in real life, he's wearing sweatpants and screaming at eggs. You know what I mean?
That is so terrifying in so many ways.
He's
And
a great guy, and I
great
feel
for
good.
him.
I feel good for him.
Yeah, 100%. But I also think like So like if you can speak and be from an ultimate place of safety, right? Like where you're protected at all points.
Yeah.
That I think would put you into sociopathy pretty quickly. Or psychopathy.
I felt
What-
this way when I would date online, where I was
As soon as you're
starting
living
to
through an avatar.
I was starting to detach from reality a little
Yeah.
bit, where it's like I control all the details, you get to know.
Well, it's like that's one of the reasons that Tinder is so insane, because it's like you get the ability that somebody has said yes to you immediately. So you're already coming in from a place of safety. So you can be as aggressive as what your baser instinct would want to be, but in social setting, you would never be.
See, the problem with that is like they've said yes to you based on your appearance only.
Yeah.
Right? They say yes to you, and it's like, oh, I'm greenlit, but they don't know anything about what kind of crazy you are.
Yeah. And that's
And
why
if
you
they
get these
did-
terrifying Tinder responses.
Yeah. Hello.
Siri is just part of the podcast today.
Yeah, she's just hanging out.
Is that
So,
your-
since we're getting into psychology of some internet things, just for fun here, I wanted to go back to that selling your armpit online thing.
Sure.
You wanna
And
try it?
I'd love to dive into the patronage of this a little bit. Who is putting their money into this? The armpit thing, the feet thing. Would you suspect these to be like just super stereotypical hyper incel
No,
individuals, or are we looking at people who are perhaps someone who's in a somewhat negative or unsatisfying relationship in a particularly bland phase in their life?
Well, here's the thing. Like, you can get a certain amount of that stuff for free.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So I think it's the aspect of it isn't about the image alone. It's
No,
about
no.
it's
the
about
engagement.
the power of getting someone to do it for you.
Oh.
Right? Like, I paid you money, you're gonna do this for me. Like, this image is coming to me directly.
You think it's a power dynamic?
I think there's a little bit of that because you can go and search for that stuff online.
Yeah.
Like, you could go Pornhub
Yeah.
and armpit, whatever you want, and you're probably going to find something. Now, I'll give you that there might not be much. Mm-hmm. I haven't honestly searched that. But, like, it must be a niche, right? But then I think if you could get it for free, but you still choose to pay some woman who's presumably just living her life normally, it's like a bit of a voyeuristic thing,
By
too.
living her life normally, you mean making money showing parts of her body
Well,
on the internet.
She's only
Yeah,
doing that because the
normal.
money's there.
Welcome to the
So,
future.
right? Like, she wouldn't be doing that for free. So,
No,
like,
no.
$100. So I take a picture of my armpit. Yeah, that sounds like an easy $100.
You think it's that much? You think it's like $2?
No, there's
It's got to be. It's
there's
got
a
to be
lot
decent.
of there's a lot of money out there for people who want to do those kinds of things. I've seen it. Like I said, 6 years ago, my ex was looking at ways to make money online because she didn't
Wednesday
want a
mornings,
job.
we have the Remy Show, and Thursday mornings, we have dudes showing off armpits.
Really?
The new moneymaker.
And I was like, well, what's the problem? Just sell your socks. There's people who will buy them. Right?
Well, but see, we see it very pragmatically. Like, because like we understand that, like, hey, if you're just gonna make money off of a guy that wants to give you money for this, we see it as like, man, just take that money. Who cares?
I see it like Rogan always says, just post and leave.
Yeah.
That's the kind of way I would be about something like that. Don't even look back.
Well, I would never want to look back.
Yeah. Don't look
Not
back.
ever.
Do not engage my audience. Do not engage my
Yeah,
audience.
just put it up there and walk away. Don't
Yeah.
even just, and it'll sell.
Well, but at the same time, then you get to a place where maybe it's oversaturated, and then all of a sudden it's going to move away from underarms. It's going to get into something weirder, because like I think even the feet
content
thing,
creep.
like feet were like really underground until what, like 10 years ago. Then all of a sudden it started coming into people talking about it. Now, like, I listened to a podcast the other day, and 3 out of the 4 guys on there said they were feet guys.
Really?
And before
That's
that,
a stunt. They set that up.
no,
Like, I'm so skeptical. I don't believe that crap.
I doubt it. And I don't think it's like they're into feet in that way, but I'm guessing they like feet.
I think
as
it's
well.
more interesting to say they like feet in this world of I said something that gets people interested, therefore I'm special.
I don't think these.
That's the first thing that goes through my head when I hear something like that.
And I understand that, but
Yeah.
like knowing the podcast and knowing the people, I don't think there's any reason that they would have said
Was it
that.
this podcast?
No.
Okay.
Wasn't this
I
podcast?
thought I was in trouble for a
Hey,
second
you know
there.
you're part of this podcast, and that would have been last week's episode.
I forget things.
Yeah, what did we say? Did I agree to that?
When did I say that, and what was I on? Yeah.
So apparently I'm into feet now.
Yeah.
And like, not that feet
is my
can't
life
be
now.
nice,
Yeah.
but like, I don't understand it from an attraction perspective.
Especially not eroticism.
No.
But
No, I
here's
don't
the
get
thing: is like there's something for everyone, right? So like if you like that, fine. I just think that the glorification of any one thing is always a problem, because now it's become everywhere. Like I see that almost every female Instagrammer has used that as an angle.
In which
Like,
respect? Like
well,
the OnlyFans or?
Like anyone that's in the same range of following as me has posted pictures of that, and if they haven't, they've been heckled too over and over again by people.
Man, that's so
Because
interesting.
it's like it's one asset to use, right? Like say you have 5 skills that you can use and you got to rotate those, right? Okay, today I'll do feet. You know, that's an easy picture and it gets a lot of traction. It's just another gun in your shed kind of thing, right? Like, because like if you're diversifying your content, it's just one more thing you can do, and it'll get another base of people, right? So like maybe you've got a good set of boobs. Okay,
Thanks.
so that gets maybe it gets Kevin and Scott, right? Maybe you've got a nice bum, so maybe it gets another couple guys. Maybe you've got a nice set of feet.
You're
gets
still
another
talking about
couple-
you, right?
Sure.
Okay, sick.
Me, yes.
Yeah.
I've actually had people ask me for feet pictures.
That's how I thought we got onto this conversation.
I mean, I don't want to get into that because, like, I do have my feet blacked out, and I'll have people who are like, show us your blacked out feet. I'm like, nope.
I'm pretty sure our viewership so far has just been waiting for this episode where you finally show off your feet.
It's just
Hang on a second. So we are just sitting around here talking about it, like, oh yeah, whatever. Show them your feet. Who cares? And you're of the perspective, no, I'm not going to show him my feet for yourself. So what changes it for you? What is the feeling
because,
of no?
like,
Absolutely not.
men's feet, I don't know. It's.
But see, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's something in you right now that's being like, no, I don't want to do that. Which, fair response. Totally.
What if it turned on a greasy guy in his 40s sitting in a white beater in
well,
his
I
basement?
do have a certain contingent of that kind of love.
Okay, so what's the dollar amount? Let's play that game.
Well,
What's the dollar amount that you send out
I don't
photos
wanna-
of your feet?
$4.60.
For myself, I'm not in that avenue. Like,
Yeah,
I
know,
don't
but we're
have an
playing the game of
OnlyFans.
hypotheticals.
Well,
What
for
would
me
you
to
do
get
for
it-
$10,000?
For me to get a OnlyFans, I would have to. Here's what it would cost me. It would have to be better than my job. Like, I would have to not need to work anymore to
Why?
do that.
Say you made an extra $500 a month.
No, I'm not in it for
Not
that
doing it?
much.
Okay, good. This
No.
is a good starting
Okay,
point.
we did it. We did
No,
it.
So-
I'm not in OnlyFans for anything less than what would replace my work comfortably forever.
Okay, so let's say someone wants a pair of your socks.
Sure.
What's the dollar amount that gets you to mail them out?
$50.
$50 does it?
That's a reasonable amount.
Okay, so photos of your feet. What's
No.
the dollar amount?
Nah, it's different for me.
That's
$700.
Suddenly it's so personal.
Because I'm not posting that, right? Like, I don't want to post it.
Oh, no,
they
this,
just
this is
want
a,
it-
this is a private send.
Yeah,
If
this
they
is a
want
private
it-
sale.
If they want it sent,
This
maybe
is Kevin wants a picture of your feet.
maybe
Yeah.
$100.
On his wall. He's not going to show anybody.
Like, I
But
don't.
let's be real.
I'd have to hardline. No, seriously, because that stuff can get posted about you, and like it's all reputational cost.
Yeah, but
I'm not in that avenue though. Like there are guys who are. Like there are
course.
guys who are in better shape than me, and they're looking way better than I am. You know what I mean? And they're selling on their looks,
yeah.
and that becomes like their whole thing is look how good looking he
Man,
is.
if only I could sell on my looks.
Well, me
That'd be
too.
sweet.
But,
Sweet.
but you are selling on your appearance.
Yeah,
I'm
that's true.
selling on my appearance for sure.
And I would have never thought of it until this episode so much, but now it's suddenly so clear that you kind of have a similar business model as one of these models who's selling some T and A and other. You know?
So what I get is a lot of
Other.
like latex guys and like leather guys because I
Ooh,
have black
leather
skin,
daddy.
right?
So this is an avenue in the gay culture then too. I was wondering if feet were like heteronormative only, or if this was a thing in the gay culture as well.
It's more predominant. Males interested in females.
Yeah.
But there is a section of men that like male feet too, because there's an aspect of that because if you know anything about, and I do, BDSM culture, tops and bottoms, feet, and the worship of said feet is less about sometimes even the look or the anything else of feet, and more about the power dynamics. Like if you're kissing someone's feet, they're below you, right? And if you're that guy that's doing that, then you're looking at this person as your dom, right? And so it's a lot of power play there.
That's so that's interesting too. That because like then all of a sudden the buying something that can't be bought, like buying photos of someone like with their feet or whatever.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden that does become a power dynamic, so it's maybe not as much about the feet. Maybe it's about the act. It's like
and it's also about seeing something that is rarely seen, right? Like it's because this person wouldn't have showed that to someone else, presumably, right? That's your idea.
That's
anyway.
a fun thought, actually, is that especially in our North American culture, you never see other people's feet.
Yeah, we're always covered.
Yeah, even if you have friends to your house, everyone's wearing socks. There's a month in the summer where people sort of wear flip-flops.
Well, it becomes a private part.
But it's hidden just like any other private part.
Do you think this would be less common in places where sandals are more predominant? Like
I would think
Florida?
so. Yeah.
Do you think there'd be less feet people in Florida?
I guess there was some point.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It just like
there was a point along our evolution where feet were pushed as a sexual object. It was in the 17 or 1800s. You're gonna have to fact check me on this. When they were trying to limit procreation because there was a lot of illness, and they didn't want to spread that on. It was some kind of sexual illness. Oh
Syphilis?
God, you're gonna. It might be. You're gonna
Syphilis
have
was
to
a
fact
big
check
thing.
me for sure.
because that's why they had the wigs and all
There
that.
was something where they didn't want men and women having sexual intercourse. They wanted to promote sex other ways that didn't have either fellatio or intercourse happening. And so they were selling feet and I feel like a few other different body parts as sex objects to try and limit sexual intercourse.
Goodness.
Interaction with private parts in particular was demoted. I really hope I'm getting this right. Because this is a whole lot of... It might even take a minute to Google.
So on the topic of fetishes,
Sure.
I think we should fetishize some new things.
Sure.
I think we should turn our attention, because feet are relatively inert, not super exciting. What if we fetishized healthy attitudes and emotional intelligence?
But doesn't
There is a fetish for emotional intelligence. I forget what it's called. There's also a fetish for straight up like book smarts. And as I
Really?
said, voice kink. Like there's all kinds of fetishes. It's just that some of them aren't as glamorized as others. Like feet have become the object of a lot of attention, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's become overblown
mostly
now.
because feet are controversial.
Yeah, it's-
Like most things in the age of the internet, the more controversial thing wins out. It gets the most attention, it's most interesting. It has us talking, right?
Well, I always think like it's a little like religion to me. Fetish is a little like religion to me in that what we're fed all the time, we're used to, and it doesn't seem strange. But we
Exactly.
start talking about Scientology, and it's like, well, that's weird, right? But then it's like, yeah, but Christianity is very weird too. We're just used to that weird,
It's
right?
just
Like it's
mainstream.
all very strange. It's just what are you used to?
yeah.
Like, really, there's nothing else because like you can find weird stuff in either religion.
Well, it's like if you go to travel somewhere and then you eat their desserts and you're like, wow, these are weird flavors, but it's just because you've never had them before.
Have you ever had sex while high on psychedelics?
I haven't.
It's a weird time because part of you is
I'd be
like,
worried about going soft or something.
it's a
not
funny
being-
time because
I think if you're on psychedelics, you're not worried about much.
Sure, but like
part of oh no you are part of your psyche, not about that but other things. Part of your psyche is like
Which type of psychedelic are we talking about?
Mushrooms or LSD.
Okay, yeah.
Part of your monkey brain is like, oh yeah, my biology wants this. I do this all the time. I'm super into this. Let's go for it. And then part of you is like, this is weird and yucky. Because part of the trick with psychedelics is you're observing everything through fresh eyes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
part of
yeah.
the magic of psychedelics. And suddenly you're doing the same old thing, but kind of with a new, fresh perspective, as if it's your first time seeing what sex is, really questioning it and going, this is a weird time right now. This is, I mean,
See,
this
I
is
would think
familiar
like I'd get
territory.
wrapped up in that thought process, and then I would be
Probably.
like, I'd just be flopping around
This
down there.
is not your. I'm not recommending sex with a new partner while on psychedelics.
Yeah, someone you know, and someone who's not going to be offended.
Yeah.
This is not like a one night stand type of
Yeah,
situation.
you're not hooking up with some girl at a beach party here. We're talking about. I've done that too, but we're talking about your girlfriend, your wife, your partner, who is not going to care that you got self-conscious and had a weird time because you're high on a potent
I'll tell you,
psychoactive drug.
There was a weird time in my life where, like, because I famously had almost no one-night stands, but
Yeah.
not for lack of the ability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, right before I met Sarah, I was dating a handful of women.
Yeah.
And one of them was fairly aggressive. She came over and she didn't want to go.
Okay.
And she wanted to have relations, and I wasn't into it, and I couldn't get into it, and then I kind of sent her away.
Yeah.
Because for me, I can't get there if I'm not emotionally involved.
Sure.
I don't know what it is. Like, I've never been that interested in like random sex, but like I've had the opportunity,
Yeah.
and it's always been like, no, let's get to know each other better. And that sounds really dorky,
No.
but
No.
I think a little more of that wouldn't hurt.
No kidding.
I'm not saying, I'm not slut shaming or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's just I think the way that I one night stand is emotionally, because like I found myself getting into all kinds of emotional attachments with different women where they would start pouring into me,
Yeah.
and then I would be over it really quickly.
Well, hookup culture is just glamorized, right? So we're told that we're supposed to want this. We're supposed to be okay with this.
Well-
when we all have different physical and emotional needs.
And my part of my problem is like I don't want to say exactly what I like, right?
I
don't
don't
need to get
recommend
in,
that.
but like I can't
Check out your OnlyFans for that.
I can't I can't get into sex that I feel like I'm restrained, or I'm like, if I do something that's a little too aggressive, it's going to be weird. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm going to do anything really bad or
You're
anything.
gonna build
but
that trust up first.
I have that pretense,
you can
that
be
there's no
honest.
trust. Then it's like, if you do something strange, is this a problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then that's not the way you want to have sex. Especially not today's culture, where someone could turn around and say you did something and then it's your word versus theirs kind of thing. So I just think that trust is so important. And without that, it's not that fun for me. Like, because once you've been with someone for a little while, they're like, okay, they know your interests and you know their interests, you know
Yeah.
their boundaries, and
Yeah.
there's a respect there.
And they've gotten used to your weird. So when you
Yeah.
let some of your weird out, they're down with it.
But the worst is when you're with a partner where you don't feel like you can be yourself,
Well, that's just not a good partnership.
Yeah, that's
like
terrible.
sexually.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
just any portion of you.
Yeah.
Like, because really, that's just your. Well, this is something that like I've had to grow into, of like slowly letting myself become myself, because, for a long time I was within boundaries that would be like.
Especially in Christianity, you're
Yeah.
taught to be
You're taught that
ashamed of
yourself
what
is
you want.
really bad.
Yeah.
It's weird.
You're-
Because like that's like the origin story, right? Like Adam and Eve, you were full of sin. It's like you as a baser being is bad.
Well, you're taught that wanting that in itself is bad. Like
Well, any wanting, any selfish,
Yeah.
any selfish anything is technically
Yeah,
bad.
it's like just craving that behavior, just craving that act, just craving X, Y, and Z is already a sin.
Yeah.
So you're kind of taught from day one, no, you are bad.
Yeah. Which like so, but I think any situation where you can't be genuine or authentic is a problem, and
Life
it creates
yeah.
issue.
It's so hard to find someone that checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Like, so you can be emotionally honest, you can have an intellectual, like, good conversation, you can be good friends together, Physically, you find this person attractive, and then sexually, you don't line up. It's like, well, throw that one in the bin.
So can I throw a theory out there?
Sure.
I attribute a lot of my depression as I grew up and all those things was because I kept having to kind of constantly repress who I thought I was. Because everything that I thought I was bad. So anytime I wanted to be myself and had to restrain it, I think it was creating a negative image of myself. So thus my depression came from that. So my theory is social media, you are governed by the way that society moves, right? So if you're going to get rewarded by things that society values, and you're going to get hurt by things that society doesn't value. So my wonder is that by having to put out something that's going to be socially accepted, that might not be you, are we creating a generation of people that are doing the exact same thing that I did within religion, but the new religion is society,
Yeah.
and you're having to put out a false version of yourself in order to make it so everybody's okay with you.
Instead of projecting projecting that personality to impress your congregation, you're making that persona to impress the internet as a whole.
You
Well,
have
it's
to
the new
strike,
congregation, right?
You have to strike a balance. Like, I've had people come after me in comments, like, how your page is literally just you. Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything? It's just you. Day after day, you.
Yeah, that's what I'm selling here.
And it's like, yes, exactly. But to someone who's never seen social media before, it seems like I'm this narcissist that only cares about myself. But it's not that. It's that if I post a picture of my dog chewing a bone,
no one cares.
that I snapped on my picture, guess what happened? That picture got no likes. Fine. That picture got no likes. Sure. Got no comments. Fine. Who cares, right? So the next picture I get, it says my last picture only got seen by these many people, and these many people liked it. So your next picture, it's not going to get seen by as many people. So if I do a picture of my cat now eating it from its bowl, that picture gets even less interest than my dog. So now when I go back to showing my tattoo progress,
That's less.
guess what?
You've
That
just
got
devalued yourself
to
by
a smaller audience now than it would have, and it's fighting an uphill battle, and it's not going to make it.
But this is where, like, when I think of how people have to put themselves out there in a way that's going to get accepted well. So it's like, people will travel to get a photo to present that as though they've done this thing, right? Like, there's a set in LA of a private jet, like a private jet
Just
cockpit.
for content's
It's
sake.
just for content. So
This
you
is
can
what I
go
was
and
saying.
rent it for a photo shoot.
But my ears, do I keep stretching them as much as I do without social media? It makes a good image to go.
Or do you rent a private jet set and show it off?
That's another form of clout seeking.
I would do that.
It's all clout.
Stretch them in the private jet.
It depends on what avenue
in
you're
my
in.
private jet,
Because
stretch my
that
ears.
private jet picture of me might not trend. Like for me, but for you it might. It depends on what kind of feed you've been building.
But this is what I'm wondering, like, does that then create
It
what
does.
we're seeing now for anxiety and depression?
It does. There's no question, because like you said earlier, I'm simply speaking the language. I can have this conversation with you two and understand that my feed is not my reality.
Oh, yes,
It's
certainly.
curated to sell and keep growing.
But people-
It's curated to grow, but my life isn't. So like, I won't
You
post.
have that, right? Like, you have that nice delineation.
Yeah.
Whereas most people don't.
These kids that are coming into this aren't going to know the difference. They're just going to go, these parts of me don't work. These parts of me don't work. These parts of me don't work.
Not even kids, man. Old people. People older than us. That's why people are using Facebook now, and like, you get people into these rabbit holes of, they find somebody that they can please in a way that gives them affirmation. And that's why you get these like QAnon weird cult things that are happening now.
It's just like a cluster that keeps getting bigger. But like, my thing is, like, I have always said people are living their image. Even before social media, I've had a particular problem with this. It's been a sticking point to me. I've fought with my wife about it a little bit because I've thought in the past, like, she is too much her image. Like, she she loves black metal, she loves witchy stuff, right? But then she's got all these other qualities that she doesn't really, or she started to now. Like, I'll give her a lot more credit. Over the last few years, she's come back into some of her old interests. But, like, she's going to listen to this. She's going to be like, Remy, don't say this. But, like, what I've told her the same thing is, like, you're not just black metal witchy girl.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just blackout tattoo guy.
Yeah.
You like all these other things.
And that's okay.
It's just that if you're building a feed,
Yeah.
those people don't want all those other things.
No.
So, idiot that's commenting, hey, why don't you show off your other things? Because this is a business.
Well,
This
and not
isn't
to
my
mention,
life.
Your feed is not for you. Your feed is resonating
Yeah.
with those people, right? Like, so your feed of a photo of whatever, if you did a photo of a mountain hiking trail that you went on, that you went into the front of and just posed for a second and then drove home, your feed is not about you then. Your feed is about resonating with the people that will give you a like for that.
Yeah.
So it's not about your interest all of a sudden. It's about the other people's interests. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, how big is the number of people that have that interest? Can I get that number to be higher? Blah, 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 blah. But it's all of a sudden, it's not about a person. It's not about you as an individual. It's about everyone else. And that is anxiety. Like, the way that the world perceives you, worrying about the external view of you as your identity is anxiety. Is you believe that the world has a negative view of you. And you're so concerned with how that is. And that's like, I can see anxiety.
It would
in
weigh,
this.
my God, if I was 10 years younger, I wouldn't leave the house anymore.
Why?
Because the amount of hate that I get is
Oh,
extraordinary.
Yeah, I get you.
It is otherworldly.
Yeah.
Like, yesterday, I had a TikTok video that didn't do great. And that's fine. I don't really care. That doesn't bother me at all. That happens a lot. TikTok is like, it either does amazing or it doesn't. Like, that's it. There's no middle ground.
Yep.
It's just like soar and then crash, soar, crash. There's no middle. Like, Instagram is almost always like this.
Yeah.
And then you get like a little spike.
I think that's why people enjoy TikTok. 'Cause
TikTok
it
is like,
extremes.
whoo, and then you're down the
Just
next
slot
day.
machine
It's
style.
like, whoa, what happened there? But anyway, even on that video that didn't work, it hit the right wing of TikTok really hard for some reason. So it was just endless hatred, and there was nothing breaking it up.
Wow.
It's just like, this guy will never get a job. Boy, this guy must be on unemployment. Oh, no one will ever love this guy. This is what happens when you have no strong male
Role models?
role models.
Just ultimate rejection.
This is going to be bad when the next generation comes up all looking like this. Imagine what this guy's going to look like when he's older.
You probably shouldn't read
Cancer,
your comments.
skin disease, like all these different things. Every kind of attack from all different approaches in a steady stream. There's nothing breaking it up. If I was growing up and I was coming up and I posted a picture and I'm 18 and I'm feeling good about myself that day and all of these comments matter to me,
That'll ruin your month.
you're done.
Here's a new theory. Okay. So everybody gets assigned a therapist. Okay.
We need to expand the budget for therapy.
No, the therapist only has one job, which is to ask you about the comments that you made. Because that's got to be telling about the person, right?
Well, I wonder how
I'll
many
have a-
more
I'll
of
have a
these
short visit with a
people leave.
therapist.
Yeah, it'd be a real short therapy.
Yeah.
Like, I did respond to one guy a few weeks ago because he was like, I can't imagine what kind of job you must have. And he's like, you're either a construction worker or a tattoo artist. And I was like, first off, I'm neither of those things. Second, there's nothing wrong with either of those things.
Yeah.
And third, they all or both of those things make more money than a basement troll.
Yeah.
Right?
Damn. Ooh. Okay, new thing. We should make you run for public office.
Dude.
Because
Oh, jeez.
you,
Remy for
as Prime
councilman.
Minister of Canada in 2060, would be bomb.
2060.
You should start growing
It
your
takes some
hair
time
though.
to
You can
climb.
run as a woman because that'll be really.
I'll be a pretty old man for that time.
Women.
Yeah, and you'll
Donald
look
Trump?
dope. You'll be, what, 70 something?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
I'd be
Yeah, there we go.
72.
Okay, so let's say 2050. Let's go
Sure.
in your 60s because people need that. They need to see that their tattooed
how
prime
about
minister
50s?
is respectable. 50s? Sure, I guess.
Yeah.
But either way, I think that would be breaking down stereotypes, and then proving to all those people that yeah, you can run a country if you're covered in tattoos. Come on.
Well, I think what's funny
Trudeau might have a
is
sleeve,
always
who knows?
like the pretense is that I must be like an edgelord or something, like super
What?
edgelord is like
What's that
I think
reference?
it's
okay,
a
so an
sexual thing.
edgelord
Sounds
is
like
like
it.
Yeah.
a trope of like super edgy boy, like all angry and angsty and
Oh,
like
okay.
moody. And then it
We used to call
turns
those
out
emos,
So
and
Sure.
I was one.
So leather
edgelord
daddy
is like the online
edgelord.
version of that.
Right.
Like it's the language of the day. When you call someone an edgelord, it's like they're being overly dramatic and like emo and like moody mood shots, right? Like covering their face like this. And
My
it's
Chemical
darkly-
Romance.
Sure.
In the background.
Oh yeah.
So like that's an edgelord, and like that's the pretense of someone that looks like me, I guess.
Okay.
And then it turns out that I own a house and I'm married and I've had a job forever and
That's why that candy cane photo is so visceral, I guess, because that's flying in the face of that notion.
yeah.
You know what I mean? As though you're this deep, brooding, moody guy that has
Yeah,
a candy
I do
cane
that all
through
the
his
time.
mouth, through his nose. It's like that. That's like a direct flying in the face of that
Contradiction.
Concept. Yeah,
Well, then I did
contradiction,
that
thank you.
video on TikTok with Frank Sinatra Christmas music playing,
Yep.
and it's somehow really classy feeling, but it's
Well, yeah.
a very
Sinatra
modified
classes up the
guy
joint.
putting candy canes through his nose, and it's just juxtaposed in so many different ways that it's like, how do I process? And before you can even finish that thought, your brain explodes. Like, what is happening in this video? And like, this is all my statement of, you don't have to be your image. Like, there's more to people than the shirt they're wearing.
Yeah.
And so many people resonate so much with their stuff and their lane that they start to become that,
Well, it's their ego, right?
right? Sarah,
is why
black metal
psychedelics.
girl, where, right. And I think that people need to try and be a fleshed out human being who listens to all different sides of things and has many different interests and embraces all of those different interests.
Question.
Sure.
Because I see what you have in terms of the diversification between the social media identity and your own personal identity as kind of like a more healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So say you take that model and you make it like your coworker guy who's online and he has a hyperbolized avatar
Yeah.
that is his character. Does that kind of make the same thing? In which
Yep.
case, are you happier being just
I have been
you?
speaking to him from in my own way without trying to counsel him or give him like, oh, be his coach. But like, I feel like he's starting to do the same thing I've already been doing. It's just that my avatar is different than his.
Yeah.
My avatar is more rooted in reality, but it is an avatar. Like, I am acting online. It is real life, but it's also controlled, and it's also measured, and it's also like restrained, and it doesn't include my thoughts on certain issues. No one wants to know what Remy thinks about gender equality or racial issues or any of that stuff. They don't.
I kind of do.
They don't come to me on that page for that. They come to me for a certain thing, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm almost acting. It's almost like people are acting characters on social media without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I feel like he's just doing that, but adding another component to it.
Yeah. I just find it interesting when because when I always view it as that avatar thing or whatever, because like my uncle does that stuff. He's like into Second Life or whatever those games are.
Sure.
And that's a majority of where he lives his life is in that.
Yep.
And I always wonder, like, because he's gonna have his own way of living within those rules, and then there's life, and I think like if you watch I think the idea of that is very like it can be viewed as very sad, because no matter what, the avatar is going to be a glorified version of ourselves, right? So we're going to be seen as like, well, we think this thing is so great, and then that downplays our real life.
Yeah.
Or does it make it so you've got separation between where you're engaging with that type of mentality.
What if we viewed it like entertainment, and it was the same as if he was watching Survivor and got a lot of value from watching
I view
Survivor?
it as entertainment.
Yeah, so maybe for him that's the same as if he was a Mario Kart addict and he came home from work and he played 3 hours of Mario Kart every day.
Yeah.
And that's where he got his value and his entertainment, and that's sweet. That's kind of can fill a similar role in your life, just it's more addicting because it's giving you social feedback as well.
If he can play with others, and there's a leaderboard, and he can show off how good he is, because that's what social media does.
Right.
With Mario Kart, if he's just playing it on his own, there's no social component.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
that's
There's
the
less
thing.
there's less risk of getting lost, losing part of yourself into Mario Kart, I guess.
It's like Warcraft would be a better option for that.
yeah, wow.
So WoW, right? Because there's a social component.
I said wow on accident.
It's good.
That was intentional.
Like people like to compete, and if it's not player versus player, then it's what gear am I wearing? You know, what does my character show off how much I've done? You know what I mean? Like you see a guy in legendary armor in Warcraft, and you know that guy has beaten all the best bosses, and he's the highest level, and he has the highest gear score or whatever. So this guy has clout, right? That's the same as having a big following on Instagram. It's all just clout, and you can get that in different areas. And it means different things in different areas. Like clout on one thing might be paying your bills, where clout on another thing is paying your emotional bills, right? So like you're getting all your validation from having these big numbers.
Right.
But if all of a sudden my wife leaves me and my son is not living around here, I can't see my son anymore. I don't have a job, but I still have 118,000 followers on Instagram. Do I still feel secure? No.
No,
you don't.
goodness.
I don't. But there's going to be someone who does. There's going to be someone who his whole life is falling apart in reality, but as long as he looks good online, it's fine. Right? And the minute he loses that platform, it doesn't matter what he's got at home.
Right.
He's still miserable.
He's got too much tied into that.
You know,
Internet of
having
Things.
118,000 people care about or have an opinion about you, or having 2 people have an opinion about you. If it's just about having that feeling being triggered or whatever, getting validation, then obviously for people that don't see real life as more valuable, it would be.
But
You
this is
sacrifice
where
your real life for the digital.
our psychology has gotten reversed, because like we know that we can only care about so many people. Right? We know we can only care about
Yep.
these people in our orbit.
Well, but like, I don't think you care about 118,000 people.
No.
I think you care that 118,000 people perceivedly care about you.
I
Because I think
that-
it's egocentric. Like I think it's all whatever is.
It's all an act of ego, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way to put your true self on the internet.
that 118,000 is only worth anything to me if I can utilize it somehow. Like
Maybe it's allowed
I've
to,
stopped
it's allowed to bring
caring
you
about
value.
growing that to
Yeah.
a large degree. I want to get that into this, watching this
Right,
podcast,
right.
interacting with something more meaningful.
Well, because this podcast is far closer to projecting true self
and
than a few
I
photos.
like this.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't like posting an image with a caption that I wrote that no one's going to read, right? Because my image is just, it's like I'm trying to broach into a bigger discussion. Like, I don't just go, here's a picture. I'll try and write something that
Yeah.
I think, and then no one will read it, and they'll make all these
I'll
judgments
read
on.
your captions, Remy.
Well, like, I'm not offended
won't.
when I won't really offended if you don't read it. But like the idea is that Instagram is very vapid and short-lived, and what you want to try and build is something that's more timeless, that will last. Like if you can get someone to listen to you speak for an hour, then you have a better attachment to them than someone who just goes double tap and keeps going.
Yep.
So what's that mean? 118,000 people think that your picture is cool, right? Does that mean anything though? Would those guys care?
Well, I think what it feels like is that means you, like that it's not that they like that photo, it's that they like you.
What it feels like
But
is that
I
when
don't
you
feel
start
that way.
piercing,
I know
every
you
single
don't.
piercing in this town.
But that's
No, I know. You're arguing about what someone else would perceive that value to be, right?
yeah, and I think, having the ability to view things as, like, if we're talking observer thing, but like having the ability to view social media as something, or as the inability to see it as something. Because, like, if you're going
Right.
to use social media for a purpose, you can see it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a business, or if you're a small business, or you're trying to do something that way, where all of a sudden you have something that you can gain from the utilization of it, great. You have the ability to see it as not you. It's a tool that you get to use, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing it for engagement, for its actual purpose, which is the social aspect of
Yeah.
it, I don't think you have the clear delineation in the same way. I think it gets tricky. I think it gets into a place of, like, this is social. This is now you. This isn't you for a purpose. This isn't you to make money, or this isn't you for a business. This isn't you for an end goal. This is just you.
Where a lot of people get lost in it, and they give up on the whole thing, because if you make $20, you made $20, okay? You're not going to make $20 every day. You're not going to,
Depends how many photos of your feet you send out.
Depends how
Well,
many
fair.
dicks you suck.
But, like, my greater concept is, like, awareness and a discussion, right? Like, it's like, I want to bring body mods forward in some way. I want to have a discussion that hasn't been had yet in society. I want to talk to Joe Rogan, potentially, for 3 hours and explain
Ideally,
to
that'd
the
be great.
world
Yeah.
in a grand way that it's not what people think. Like, when you have a purpose, then what you're doing doesn't feel like it has to be paid, right? Like, it doesn't have to be making you bank to be your career when you're building it somewhere. Like, if I'm 118,000 right now, what's to say I'm not 180,000 next year?
And you can be enjoying the journey the whole
Sure.
time, right?
And
Like, that's
there's all
intention-
kinds of things that
ideally.
happen along the way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's all kinds of things that happen along the way, and they're not all necessarily cash.
Also, if you go to Rogan, we're coming as your entourage.
Well, this is now something that I thought a lot about, is like, if I got onto that kind of a level, what I could say that could further a discussion, because
Moving to Texas.
I
Now we
really
have a
dislike the way that it's framed right now.
Which?
Body mods in general. Like, and I see it myself firsthand in the comments.
What about it don't you like?
The framing of, did you just get out of jail? You must be on unemployment. Who's paying for this?
Dude, don't let my grandma get you down.
No. These people they don't get me down. But what it tells me is that we haven't done much to move that issue. Right.
I think it depends what you mean by that, because you're talking in more at the extremes of body mod, right?
Sure.
So, but the
seen-
actual language around tattoos is very different than it was.
I seen an image in 2012 of a guy who had giant gauges in nostrils and giant holes in his cheeks. And I thought it was a little much for me, right? I still do. I still don't love his look.
So you told them he was a useless piece of crap.
That's basically everything that I seen on that picture was, this guy's life is a train wreck.
Yeah.
He must hate himself. No one will ever love him.
Yeah.
And people were liking all of these comments, and it was like a circle jerk of hatred.
And it was all true.
It was absolutely disgusting to me.
It was all true.
Right. Like, I thought this is the most hateful feed I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And it's one of the last places where it's socially okay to be that nasty.
Dude, there's a lot of places that you can do that.
You can do it, but there's going to be someone who might defend or come in and go, "Hey, what are you doing? That's not cool." But these guys have done it to themselves, right? This is the idea, is like, you weren't born this way. You must have done this for this reaction, right? And so it's okay to hate on these guys because they did it to themselves. It's not like he was born with these giant holes in his nose, right? Sure, and that's fine. I don't want to stop those guys, but I do want to go, yeah, but he probably has a job. Do you know how expensive this stuff is? Maybe he doesn't hate himself.
Well, maybe they do and they're jealous.
No, most people don't understand. Like
The commitment.
They don't equate it, right? Because like there's a good majority of the population that doesn't understand how expensive our field is.
Fair.
Oh, yeah.
Fair.
Like there's a good amount of them. Like the amount of money that you've spent on jewelry is nuts.
I tell people all the time, here's the facts. I have spent over $100,000 on body modification.
There you go.
Over
Right there.
$100,000. And from
facts.
there, I've stopped counting.
Yep.
Like, that was probably a while ago.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I also own a house.
Yep.
I own a car. Right? I'm married. These things have all happened.
For some reason, I thought you were gonna say I own a wife.
Right. I own a wife. I own a son.
I own a house. I own a car. I own a wife. I own a kid.
You get these people who are like, what made you do this? Like, did you wake up one day and just go, I'm gonna like I went in here and I went, hey Rick, give me the blackout special. And I walked out.
What
and
is
I
it?
got,
$35?
I got a whole suit of black tattoos. I've got holes in my face now.
I'm
and
picturing with a spray can going up and down.
well, and I see like pages like Unilad will like they'll push it that way, and it seems like that's how it's happened because it'll be like woman spends $35,000 to cover herself in tattoos, and
Yep.
the framing is like she did this in 2 days.
Yeah, of course.
It's like that's not actually how that happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but we don't like so. Because I get a lot of general inquiry for our shop, and there is a good amount of people that say, I would like a sleeve.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love it. I
One
love it.
sleeve,
Well,
please.
there was a guy that wanted to come in and do a blackout sleeve, hand to shoulder, and he would like to do it in one day
yeah.
because that's what's presented
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh yeah, of course you can do that. Just do one, and that's all you need to do ever.
Yeah, I'm a tough guy. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a certain type of blackout artist that will do that, but you know, it provides this idea of like, oh, I just like dip my arm in it and then I've got a sleeve. This
Yeah.
instantaneous gratification thing.
In oil or something.
Yeah, like, it just dyes the skin, right?
Yeah. They just dip you in oil.
Just a vat of
good.
boiling tattooing.
It's good. Just do it. Just quick, real quick.
Perfect.
In and out.
In and out.
It'll hurt a bit, and you'll be done.
It's just with all the used needles in there from forever.
Yeah, I don't know why they're in there, but they're in there.
Just a. Anyway.
But I mean, like, you know, that's part of me. I understand that you don't like the mentality around that, but part of me is also of the mindset that like,
it's an education problem.
no, I don't think. I think it's reasonable for uneducated people in an area to not have an educated view of it. Like,
Absolutely.
Like I don't understand a lot of like, say, makeup. I don't get it. I don't get why one is more expensive. I don't get
Sure.
why you would ever spend all of these things on
But
all these things.
If you want to know how, you can find out how.
Sure, but I don't
can't
want
say
to know
the
how.
same about body modification because trust me, it's labyrinthian. When I have gone looking for answers for some of my own problems, they're just not there.
So
There's
you
no
want it more
channel.
just as like a general information
I have
resource
told,
thing.
I've said to people who've asked like, "What's your ultimate end game?" The help desk for body modification. Someone who's been through this stuff, and if I haven't, I know people who have.
Yeah.
Right. I have access to almost any answer I need for anything body mod related now.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, no, and no one would talk to me either. There was websites like EBM, Extreme Body Modification. But the people would treat you like scum if you didn't know someone. Like
Yo, bro.
like old forums that you could go and ask other people questions and maybe they'll answer you.
Yeah.
But that's all you got.
And maybe they'll answer you correctly. Maybe they'll speculate on it.
Yeah.
And give you what they think is the right answer.
But
Oh,
like
yeah,
there's
that still
no
happens too much now.
there's no Googling it, almost any of this stuff. Like I told you about the time when my lip was leaking and I'm like, okay, how do you Google this?
Yeah.
Like, has anybody had this happen before? 26 millimeter labret piercing leaking at the bottom. Google that on, and you'll find nothing.
Yeah. Wikipedia doesn't have a page for.
So where you were saying, I don't understand makeup, but I don't want to, that's a fair thing to say. But if you did want to learn more,
there's resources.
there's resources.
I see what you're saying. Yep.
So what if someone wants to become that for body modification? And it's less of a selfish pursuit. more like trying to be the guy you wish was there when you were young.
No, that's cool. I like that. Because then it's less about like informing people who don't want to be informed. Because like that's one of those things
I'm
I
not
never
trying
understood.
to tell people don't hate,
Yeah.
but I want there to be
For people that have an interest,
a
to have
broader
resource.
discussion here, because there's a lot of people that do this stuff and there's no one doing that.
Well, there's no one within for the general community, I think. Like
Well, these
within
people- a
within
lot of
like
people are-
piercer organizations, there
The
seems to be the
APP.
APP and all that stuff. But like for Joe Average, that's looking, if you're a 16-year-old kid that's looking to get into this kind of thing, yeah, you don't have much to go on.
Perhaps this is your next YouTube video series. You just go on and be super informative. You actually have a list of things to talk about, and you just get super informative for a minute.
Well, developing some sort of resource catalog, I think, would be wise.
That would be
yeah.
really cool,
Yeah.
actually.
And I've done a little of that, but like it's been really unstructured. But getting it into a place where people go looking for that would be one thing that would be helpful. And I wouldn't even say I have to be the only one. I just wish there were
just
more.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's already a bunch online doing that.
But like there's
you'd
so
be a great
people are
face for it.
so reclusive. Like I've seen some people that have gone much farther than me, but they almost never say anything.
Well, think about where you were at when you got into piercings,
Yeah.
right? Like you're a very different human than that person.
Yeah.
So like where you were starting and getting into it, you were probably more of a recluse in that respect. It was less about like being open and wanting to share things and all that stuff. Like that's usually something that you gain with age. But if say you didn't grow out of that, and if that's the majority of people that get into piercing and stretching and things like that, and they want it to stay kind of hidden and niche, because that ends up being a lot of those things is like people love the niche element.
People don't want culture appropriated or like their thing taken.
But
right? Like if you bring it out of the dark, it's not as cool anymore.
Yeah.
But like it has to surface a little more. Like because there's not enough information.
No, there's none.
You end
Well, I
up
mean, there's
talking to a jewelry maker who doesn't have the piercing themselves.
Yeah.
And they can only speculate on what might help.
Yeah. It's like I can make the jewelry, but I don't have this jewelry in me.
And a lot of these guys that are making the jewelry think the people they are selling it to are stupid and they shouldn't be wearing it, but there's money there. You know what I mean? Like they almost, like I know some of the people inside this community actually don't like body modification and make the things for body modification because there's an
So
audience
strange.
for. There was a case in the UK where a guy who makes jewelry, I won't say his name, pushed a bill against people who get their tongues split because he doesn't think it should be doable.
A bill?
Well, he was able to vote on some bill or something that
Wow.
made it so that people can't split tongues anymore in the UK. It was a huge thing. I don't know all the details, but you could Google this.
Was it can't split tongues, or was it just like, oh, so they don't
So
do it?
he doesn't
poorly
want
or-
it done anymore as a body modification. It has to be done by doctors, but doctors won't do it. So it effectively ended
Right.
this avenue. But this guy is someone who sells people in this community jewelry and stuff like this. So it's kind of like
Maybe the split tongue thing was taking away from his tongue piercing jewelry sales.
it was seen very, very poorly amongst the community. So it's like you have members in this community who are actively working against the community. It's a weird thing. And it's just really hard to get good information. Like really, really hard.
Yeah, no, it's illegal.
If you split your tongue, do you have a crazy voice affectation accent from it afterwards?
No, actually, in
think
my
so.
case, it would actually be good because I have a tongue tie, which gives me a lisp.
Right.
And Russ Fox, who I've actually paid the deposit to do this, but we've had COVID, so no travel. He's going to split my tongue eventually, whenever he can
way.
get here. But I have a tongue tie, so we have to cut the tongue tie first.
Interesting.
And then there'll be a period where I can't talk for a week. And then afterwards, my speech should actually be easier. Because
What is a tongue tie?
Tongue tie is like when you have like this little piece of like tissue that ties the tongue to the bottom of your mouth.
How about
So
that?
you have limited tongue movement, and then
No
you just
way.
adapt around that. So like I can't stick my tongue out that far, for
And
example.
couldn't you like reach back to your wisdom teeth and?
Barely.
Interesting.
Yeah, my tongue is tethered to the bottom of my mouth.
Cool.
And like that's another thing. People on TikTok will say, "Oh, modify yourself to the point where you can't talk right."
And you're like, just kidding. It's got nothing to do with that.
Exactly. They assume it's my lip because I have the plug here, but they realize that if you had met me before this, I still had a lisp. Because I don't have proper use of my tongue. My mother probably should have had that done away with when I was young. Same as my younger brother has a tongue tie too. So our tongues end up being more like a cow tongue, where it's like, it can't go out. But people will assume
that is crazy.
It's the labre. This is, again, misinformation. And how do I tell people? Because once they see this, they go, "Oh yeah, you're making it up." Of course you'd say that because you don't want people to think that you've ruined your talking by. It's like yes, of course I'm evil and I'm stupid and I'm all these things
for sure.
Right? You can't convince someone online of anything.
And both those things make more than an internet troll.
Yes, both those things make more than a basement troll.
Yeah.
Like I said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the UK, it is illegal. That's
I know the names of everyone in question I was speaking about, but I don't really want to get into that because it's.
And I guess the people that pushed it forward are the dental surgeons, the Association of Dental Surgeons, and but they're saying they won't do it because it doesn't have any functional value.
The whole thing was tipped off by a guy who makes jewelry who didn't want that being done, but he didn't want it publicized that he did it because it hurt his business for people. But I had bought a piece of jewelry from this guy, and I had said, "Oh, I bought this piece from so-and-so," and certain members of the body mod community who don't necessarily comment on my stuff normally came out and were like, "Hey, you shouldn't be buying from him anymore because he actually hates us."
Wow, cool.
Yeah. And like they weren't
thing.
mad at me, but they were like, it's it's important that you don't give this guy a rub because he actually doesn't like body mods.
Do you think he doesn't like body mods, or did he see some sort of practical thing?
I've listened to him on a podcast or two, actually. Yeah, there's a few piercing related podcasts I've listened to.
Yeah.
And he seems in those podcasts to be completely indifferent to body modification in general and just has a deep interest in making jewelry. And that's a way for him to make money.
Interesting.
Because it's an underfulfilled niche, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Which is pretty acceptable, really.
You
don't have to be into this to enjoy this craft. He's
but
making something.
For whatever reason, people are really, really not liking what he did. Like it feels like you're biting the hand that feeds.
It's kind of weird though. It's like being like a rifle manufacturer that's a vegan.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, here's your hunting rifle, but I hate what you do.
Or it's like being a man against abortion.
What? What?
Yeah, it's like being someone who is opposing someone else's freedom of choice. Even though it doesn't affect their life at all.
That's not what that means, though.
Sure. You're doing that thing again where you guys are going to argue and I'm going to be like...
Well, I understand the direction that you're coming at from it, but that wouldn't be the argument that they'd be making.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's ironic, right? Like it's an offensive irony where it's like, these guys are buttering your bread, right? And now you've gone and upset them. And now this other guy who's your competitor didn't do that. And maybe he even has the same thoughts you do. But since he didn't dirty his hands, because
it'd be like donating sperm and then being against abortion. That would be the.
You're like, I'm gonna make this analogy work. Somehow.
I was like, we're close, but like, there's something missing.
It was more like a really poorly tied together
like
political
being
commentary.
I know.
That's all that was.
I know. I was just trying to make. I was just trying to make.
Here's what it's like. It's relevant.
The tattooer, looking too far into it.
A tattooer who does several large bodysuits hates tattoos and doesn't have any of his own.
There we go.
And he's actively insulting you for doing it. Like, I don't know what you're doing.
This is so dumb.
This is the dumbest shit you'll ever do. You look terrible.
I would never do this.
Not only do you look terrible, but I hate you.
Well, no, let's
pay me. Get out.
Pay me and get out. And tell your friends I do great work.
I do great work, but I hate them.
My prices are only so high because I think you shouldn't get this tattoo.
Yeah. My price is a deterrent.
Yeah. Oh, is it too expensive for you? Good, go home.
And just sitting there the whole time, man, I hate what I do.
He's so in demand too.
Yeah.
It's a
This guy's the
$10,000
best.
deposit.
He hates everything he does, but man, is he good at it.
Yeah, that's like the
Spite
real
art.
tortured artist.
Like
right there.
that's what I feel like with this guy.
Yeah.
Where now, since I bought that last piece and I got that bit of backlash, I was like, even if I do buy anything from this guy again, I'm definitely not going to say I did, because it's not a good idea socially to buy from someone who's against your community.
Yeah, that would make no sense.
So,
Especially actively against your community.
Yeah.
are we deep enough in the podcast yet to talk about Jason Kenney, or
We should, just for a bit.
we probably should
Sure.
for a bit? Just in case the audience doesn't know, we are skyrocketing in COVID cases, and our province
And here we are with no masks.
our province is doing
We're doing
nothing.
media.
Yeah.
That has an exemption.
We are doing media.
Does it?
Yeah.
Plus, this is the only exposure that
This is our sphere.
we really have to each other in the
Oh,
week.
I'm not.
Yeah,
You know.
like, you guys are semi in my bubble at this point, but I'm still trying to maintain some distance. You know,
Well, and now I think like
Well, we're not sitting on each other's laps.
that's it. We
Well, there-
can though. I'm not opposed to it. I'll put a mask
Everyone
on for
hop
that.
on, pop on, Kevin.
yeah, there's going to be a point where it'll probably be not wise to do so, but I don't think we're there yet. Lethbridge, we're not there yet.
No, not
No,
Lethbridge.
we don't have that many cases in South Zone.
But
Well,
Alberta's,
but per capita, we are considered that we do.
yeah, per capita, we're actually getting there.
Yeah, because like per capita skews everything, right? Like when you actually see the number, even like okay, so like
Wasn't it 1 in 400 now or something?
here,
Yeah.
to be in a red zone or whatever, it's 1 in 1,000.
Oh yeah, but
like that.
but I mean, our Lethbridge is actually at 1 in 400 or something.
No, that
No?
would be
that
so
seems
many.
too many.
Yeah.
1 in 400 is only like 250 cases.
What are you talking about? We have 100,000
It's the
people.
math. 100,000. One in.
Is it too early to do this math?
Oh, I used to be much better at mental math.
250 times 400 should be 100,000.
4%.
Too early for me to do the
You're
math.
talking
I'm sorry.
4% at 400.
Yeah.
400 cases.
No,
sorry,
it's the other way around.
0.4.
1 in 400 would be 0.25, wouldn't it? Not 4%.
Yeah.
Here,
0.25.
just do the math on your tablet.
There's no calculator on an iPad.
Just go on Google. Google
Hey Siri,
calculator.
open calculator.
That's how I do
Not
it.
everybody that's watching their phone just
Okay,
did that.
watch this. We're
Yeah,
sort
do
of
it.
we're gonna
You do
success
it.
here.
Hey, where's Siri? I thought she was
250
hanging out.
times 400 equals 100,000.
There you go.
See?
Yeah, you nailed
So
it.
if we have 250 cases, which I think we're about there, we're 1 in 400.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, math's just too tough in the morning. I can't handle it.
It's the mushrooms. They got me mathing
Yeah,
hard.
see?
Yeah.
But imagine putting 400 people in here, right?
In
And
this
then
tattoo shop?
It's like finding fucking Waldo at that point. Hey,
Yeah.
that guy's
Yeah,
got COVID.
But with the trick with COVID is that after a little while, everyone's Waldo.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, if you got all those 400 people in here, we'd all end up with it. But I mean, it's 1 in 400 looks almost infinitesimal to me when you put it in like an actual scope.
Yep.
But
Well, South Zone, active cases right now is 650, 649. 25 of which are in the hospital. 5 of those are in intensive care, and we've had 40 deaths.
they're all, as expected, all of our deaths have been between 60 and 80.
Yeah.
The moral of the story, though, is that New Brunswick just moved back into orange phase level lockdown because they have a red light, yellow light, green light system. They just moved back into orange phase because they've now hit 82 cases province-wide. And we have a premier who, now that we've hit 13,000, well, we should be at 14,000 today, cases
Oh, yeah, easily.
in the province.
We'll be probably 15,000
That's
today.
14,000 cases in the province active with a wildly open economy. He hasn't even shut down restaurants. We're still just going ham.
Well, so the theory of a lockdown is to help with the overcrowding of hospitals, right? That like if you look at the CDC and the WHO and all their recommendations are simply as like they don't think lockdowns on a wide scale are smart. What it is that if you're trying to take the gas off of the ability for hospitals to catch up.
Which is
And
why
we're
New
getting
Brunswick is a
really
bad-
close.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting really close to needing that.
That's right.
Because like with the way that like they have ICU beds is how they go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hit 83 ICU beds filled in the Alberta hospitals, that's our number or
Which
whatever.
we're at 67 right now.
Yeah,
so we're not
66
far
right
off.
now. But I mean,
They worry less about COVID cases and more about how many COVID cases can be handled before we can't take in people for other problems too, though, right?
Right.
Like,
Which
is
is
it-
that's the big
Yeah.
point.
There's
That's
a
my partner
threshold.
worried.
There's a threshold
Yeah.
of like we can have this many COVID guys, and then we have to still be able to take care
Yeah.
of the other problems.
and that's the other thing, because it's like not necessarily deaths from COVID. It's almost like deaths due to COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because if the hospitals get to a place where it's
Yes,
like, okay, let's shut down the
exactly.
rest of this stuff, who's dying in the wake of that?
yeah.
Well, who
It's
got,
a-
who
it's
got
a
into a car
tricky thing,
accident
man.
and just couldn't get cared for?
Yeah.
Yeah, because people are always like, well, there aren't that many people that are sick, and there's only so many that will die, and blah, blah, blah.
Who got in a car accident and then got COVID in the hospital and then took it home to their family?
But the problem is you have stories like that one Rogan was talking about the guy who got eaten by a shark, and they called it a COVID death. And that's like, that is the wackiest story, but I've heard so many people talk about things like that happening.
Well, I think
Where it's like, my wife had a coworker, and their aunt just died,
Yep.
and they said, "Is it okay if we classify it as a COVID death because they get more funding for it or whatever?" It's like
And
this
that's-
is what makes people skeptical.
That's the real difficulty with it, right? Because especially when it first started, the death idea was just this like that was the way that they could justify the actions that were being taken. So it was all of a sudden like anything that was in relation to, or the weirdest thing was when they were reporting suspected, which means not tested COVID deaths. So it's like if they presented a symptom and then yeah.
I have COVID.
Well, like
Into the bin.
if you're at the end of life, like when my Opa was dying, he had
Yeah.
a cough. He was dying of colon cancer, but he had a cough. His lungs started failing. Like those are all things that kind of happen at the end of life. So if you're doing strictly based on like symptomatic, it can kind of skew it. Whereas now I feel like at least it's a little bit better in terms of like reporting the differences between things. Like they're a little bit more comfortable saying things like comorbidities and stuff like that, which I think kind of helps.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know. This whole thing has made it really it's very strange to see governments operate in such different ways.
Well, I think that what happened, especially in Alberta, but all of Canada,
Yep.
is we never really had a first wave. We got into this thinking
we locked
of,
down before our first wave was really here.
we got into this thinking worldwide. We went global.
yeah.
Where it
We
was
saw
like,
Italy. Italy
"Oh my
scared the
God,
shit out of everybody.
The first wave for the world.
Yeah.
But Canada didn't really get a first wave.
yeah.
Like we got like a minute of cases.
Yeah.
And there was like no big boom. And now we're in our first wave. So people say this is a second wave. Now we finally actually have a wave in
Yeah.
Alberta.
Yeah.
And we should have kept that money for CERB and used it now instead of back in April.
Dude, that whole thing, I mean, granted they could argue that the fact that we didn't have said wave was because of what we did.
You could make that argument, but we have so many more cases now, even with some measures in place, right?
But we have less deaths.
Yeah.
Like overall in terms of how they treat these things, it's a lot better. And I think that too, with like trying to help slow it down in the onset to learn what therapeutics help and what therapeutics hurt. Like that was the whole thing with respirators, right? Or ventilators or whatever.
Well,
everybody was
see-
throwing people on ventilators, which was killing them.
We see our thought processes evolving even in very small ways. Like I said to you this morning, oh, rats, I was hoping with the state of emergency I wouldn't have to pay my...
Free parking, yeah.
Right, because we thought it was living on the parking meters.
Yeah.
That was like one thought, like don't touch anything because it could be living there.
Well,
Now
I mean,
we've
if
got
it's-
paid parking still in this state of emergency, so
Yeah.
our thinking is changing on it.
Well, and that's part of the other thing. Like UV kills this thing pretty quickly. So doing things outside, having parking meters outside in the sun, that's probably fine.
Yeah.
So
Solid
now-
City can still make some money on parking.
Well, even in terms of like I don't know. I think they're just playing the delay game until some sort of miracle vaccine comes
Did you
around.
see what's his name? Christoskis? Is that his name?
What are we
Nicholas
saying?
Christoskis on Rogan again last week. He's been on a number of times. He's the guy who got in trouble for his wife and him with the inappropriate Halloween costumes or whatever.
Not familiar.
No, I don't. What?
You didn't? Okay, so he was talking about COVID. He's a doctor.
Oh, okay.
And he was saying that we're likely going to have 4 waves.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We did.
He's
watch
been
that.
on a number of times.
Yep.
But his initial thing
He was
got
on
him-
early on, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah, that
he-
was the stop the you can't stop the wind kind of guy. Was that the thing?
I think he might have been the one that said that, but originally the first time he was on, it was over some scandal of his wife dressed up as a Native American or on Halloween or something.
Ah.
And then he got like canceled.
Lambasted.
Right. Like similar to Weinstein, Brett
Yep.
Weinstein, like a similar thing. He was a university guy and all that. Anyway, his point this time was that he thinks we're going to have not 2 waves, but 4 waves, and then it's not going to be over until 2024. And anyone who says it's going to be over sooner than that is peddling nonsense because of how these things come and go.
There's some reality to that, and really the question mark is we've never tried a vaccine for something like this ever. So
Yeah, he was saying that the way we do it is it's like it isn't COVID, but our body thinks it is is what we inject in.
yeah, the mRNA.
Yeah.
Yeah. All it is you're giving yourself it is just like that. It's like you're giving the body this idea that it had it.
Yeah.
Right? That's like with most new vaccines, I guess. I don't know. But like we're in a place where I would love to see what each response actually does in terms of equation to numbers. Because like say if Jason Kenney were to like pull the trigger and be like lockdown 2 weeks, let's see what happens.
I'm so curious.
Well, I like action. I'm a fan of action.
yeah.
I don't really care which direction
And
it
2
is.
weeks is
People
pretty
like
harmless.
action because it's a great narrative focus, right? Like everybody's like,
Well,
"Ooh, this is
it's
the
heroic
storyline."
sounding, right? But I just like the idea of having some data. So like if we were as a province and we just said and like we're firm on it, like okay, 2
Yeah.
weeks, everybody just essentials, go hide in your homes. Sorry, it is what it is. 2 weeks, and then everybody will get back up and running. And just give yourself that ability to see what that does, because there's everything that we have is anecdotal, right? We can't do it another way. So it's like any decision that gets made, we have the ability to see kind of how it plays out within a 3 or 4 week span of it.
Yeah.
And I'd just be interested to see, like, because what he did yesterday was very kind of limp-wristed, which is they said that the recommendations that they made 2 weeks ago or 11 days ago are now law or rules or whatever. So now they're going to be enforced. So it was all the stuff that was like, hey,
Yeah.
you should probably do this. Now they're like, hey, we're going to ticket you if you don't do that.
Which is like I still think his recommendations that are now mandatory were kind of tongue in cheek.
Yep, I would
which
agree.
really, really aggravated the left people.
I think the first way that he did it, the kind of recommendation side, pissed people off enough to be rebellious against it. Because it seemed not taking it seriously.
Yeah, it was
Like, it
very
seemed-
like, okay, here, you want some restrictions? Here
Yeah.
you go. Now bugger off. Which
Yeah.
So we have some outcomes.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So Sweden has been kind of like poster child
Yeah.
for, hey, we're trying something a little bit different than most. Until now, until recently, they've been kind of doing the no, we're not doing anything. We're going to see how it plays out. Right now, their per capita death rate. Well, this is as of October 13th, so it could be spreading worse again. Their per capita death rate is 58 per 100,000.
Well, so that's slightly askew. Because they're not testing,
Yeah, but we're talking. Oh,
right? So it's just one of those things that when you talk about data
Yeah.
and numbers and things like that, even with the testing that has been happening, like the amount of false positives that happen within the testing field is huge. So a lot of people
Yeah.
that had it or they think they had it and they were asymptomatic never actually had it, and then they're going to get it again, and then maybe
Yeah.
they'll have symptom. So Sweden's a difficult one to look at because they're going to go, oh man, look at the deaths. They're only testing if you get hospitalized.
yeah,
So the odds of you becoming one of those death cases are exponential compared to, because like 70% are asymptomatic is what the American testing is saying. So if all of a sudden you add 70% of the population on that as probably having had it, their death rate's nothing. But Sweden as a country overall, they tend to prioritize personal health.
Yeah. They're in better condition than us, and that's why it's not a fair comparison.
Oh, it's really not.
Yeah. So when people talk about them, it's like, yeah, you try that when we're all over beasts, and we don't exercise, and we're depressed, right?
Yep.
It's not just
in the dead of winter.
We're not just talking physical health in Sweden. They're in better mental health than we are too.
Well, it's
mental fitness.
Aren't they the happiest place on earth, or is that Denmark? I
They
can't
are,
remember which.
if not the first, they're in the top 5.
Yeah.
And they're always near the top.
Yeah.
So they're mentally and physically in better shape than we are. Their country is in better shape in general, right? Infrastructure.
Weirdly
infrastructure
racist.
is so much. Oh yeah.
Weirdly racist.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine,
like
a buddy of mine
overseas
lives there, and
countries.
he's South Korean, and he gets crazy racism there.
Really?
Crazy racism.
Well, there's probably more
unfortunate.
pride, right? They're proud of themselves
It's
because
just-
they're in such a good space.
the amount of immigrant population, like it's really hard to get
The
immigration.
homogeny is really present.
it's really hard to get a visa
Yeah,
there.
it's super pure.
Yeah.
right?
Well, and they just don't want a big population.
But have you ever met this is gonna sound weird, but especially since my wife's family is German, they're like purebred German, and they are proud of being like German, but they're not. People will get upset about you can't be proud to be German because of Nazis, right? But when you're purebred anything, it comes with that. Well, there's no inbreeding, right? We're very.
It's hard to not feel attracted to identifying with that.
Sure,
right?
sure. For whatever reason, the purity is something to be proud of.
Well, I mean,
I still don't like that word here.
No, I know.
puritanical thinking has been with us for a very long
But
time.
I mean, I have none of
Well,
this.
it goes back to the tribalism.
But I have no culture. I admittedly, people will say that one of the funny things people say of me is this is what happens when when you have no culture and you're brought up with
We have
someone
a
with no.
strong, potent culture here.
I have no culture. I have no attachment to Alberta. I have no attachment to Nova Scotia. I have no attachment to my parents' beliefs. Anything.
I think Canadians have the culture of we are proud we're not American.
Yeah.
We're proud that we're Canadian.
So I've had this
which is just
conversation a
not
lot
American.
of times, but never on this podcast. I'd like to think of the words to say it. So saying that we have no culture is like saying we have no accent.
No,
It's like
I
saying
don't
relative to myself,
I don't
have
know.
no culture.
Because I still feel
but
like I have a bit of an accent from Nova
relative-
Scotia.
Relative to someone living in Myanmar, you have a very strong, very potent culture.
No, of course we do. What I'm saying in terms of cultural pride, what our cultural pride is based on, it usually is more of the idea of a celebration of lots of cultures within our culture.
That's more of a melting pot.
Yeah. Which is
Okay,
because
okay.
it's kind of like we're stoked to be Canada, and you can enjoy your traditions from,
big time,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
I feel like we are
that's a part of what
in Canada.
Yeah, and it's kind of like giving people space to have those things within. Our thing is it's that we don't really have a specific you have to adhere to this style of culture, but Canada has a vibe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have a vibe, but at the same time, if you like your culture, it seems to be widely allowed.
Here's
you know what I
one.
mean? or celebrated or
unless
whatever.
you're in Lethbridge.
I start. Alberta is a bit different.
We're Texas.
Yeah.
Alberta
Texas in the
feels
north.
more like America to me, and it
Yeah.
always has since I
Yeah.
moved here from Nova Scotia.
I mean, as we're trying to abolish public health care and
yeah.
start private health care,
well,
here we
he
are.
always makes the argument that that's where we're going, right, Kenny? It sounds like he wants that.
He's
so-
already successfully taken a couple steps in that
Yeah.
direction.
Well, I mean, if we have the vibe of our province is if we have our way, we'll be our own country. Unfortunately, it's a weird vibe because I hate
It's
it.
not a good vibe.
That's not a good vibe.
Yeah.
But it's just
separatism is not a
yeah.
good
It's
vibe.
Separatism
not
in general
hot.
sucks.
It's like in Quebec, it's bad too.
Oof.
It comes with an elitism.
But
Yeah, yeah.
now
And
all of
it
a sudden we're
alienates
talking
you from
about
your
something
neighbors.
different, right? Because now we're talking about we have this culture and this vibe, and it should be good, But at the same time, then if you take that and expand that, then it's like, well, we have a world. Why would
See,
we have?
here's where
why
I
would we
don't
be separated
care, though.
by a country.
Well,
like-
that's the thing is I want to make less borders, not more borders.
If I'm here,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
having the
tough.
same life as I would be
It's
anywhere
hard to control
else.
a pandemic if you have less borders, though.
Like,
True.
what's around me? It's like people are always like, where does this guy live? Right? He must live somewhere where this stuff is either tolerated or completely hated or something. And it's just some random ass town.
You're like, nope, this is the most marshmallow
Right.
BS
So,
town around.
this-
You're putting us
some
on the
people-
map, bro.
Some
Yeah.
people have too much patriotism, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care that I'm living in Lethbridge, Alberta. You put me somewhere else, I'll be doing the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what the hell does it matter?
Well, it matters in the way that we choose it to matter. It's like everything. You know what I mean? Like you give it as much weight as you're allowed to give it.
Here- I've seen the other night, I seen the most Canadian thing I've ever seen on YouTube. So I'm scrolling through my YouTube feed. We're trying to find something to throw on
Is
the
it Donnie
TV.
Dunphy?
Nope. With my wife and my son, and we're just kind of bored and we'll see what's on YouTube. And for whatever reason, YouTube recommended me this guy called the Raccoon Whisperer. And
boy.
he's this old, like 75-year-old, overweight
yeah.
Nova Scotian guy
Oh, yeah.
who sits on his porch at night and feeds raccoons hot dogs. And they're huge raccoons. And all it
they've
is
been eating
is
hot dogs
a
for
camera
years.
of this guy feeding raccoons for half an hour, talking with a heavy, thick Nova Scotian accent.
That's pretty great.
It is the most like wholesome hero I never knew I needed. Right? Like this guy reminds me of my grandfather. Yeah. And he's just such a kind old dude. And he's just sitting there. He's like, oh yeah, the raccoons won't be coming around for much longer now because it's starting to get a little colder. So I seen a troll commented that my raccoons were way too fat. But he's not thinking. These guys have got to hibernate. And they got to be big. And he's been doing this for 20 years. Of
course he has.
He's been doing it for 20 years. And he's just for the last few years, he's been filming it.
Yeah.
And for the last few years, he's been real small. But then he had a video go viral all of a sudden. And in that video, he's talking about how he just hit like 10,000 subscribers.
Yep.
And it's like 3 weeks ago. And he has like 400,000 subscribers now.
Man, that dude's gonna be raking in money. And
Well,
that's gonna be
people
the
are
weirdest
sending
thing.
him packages all the time
Yeah, of
now. And
course.
stuff, things to feed the raccoons.
Here's some rotten wieners in the mail.
But that's also like people just being themselves is like what people want
It's
to
such
see.
a vibe, man. Just
Yeah.
watching this guy hang out on his porch.
Yeah.
And it's so chill.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is so good. I just want to put this on the background and do things around
It's
the
like how
house.
people used to have like the fireplace TV channel on.
It's similar.
It's just like,
I'm
oh, I
telling
just
you.
have the raccoon guy.
You
feeding
look
stuff.
up the Raccoon Whisperer on YouTube and tell me it isn't the most wholesome thing you've ever seen.
I probably
I
won't,
like it.
but
I'm telling you, it is
I'm
so
being honest with
good.
you.
Yeah, it's better than you can even imagine.
I bet it is.
And these raccoons, they look like possums. They're huge.
Oh man,
And he
that's
feeds
awesome.
them marshmallows
I'm surprised-
and
Of course he does.
whipped cream.
I'm surprised he doesn't have someone living in the house.
Well, he doesn't let them in. He's got a cat called Connor. He films Connor too. Hello, Connor kitty. Hi, Connor cat. How are you today, It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen that I love.
I
Do you ever
can't-
think that they're gonna like eventually just because like TV's gonna suffer so much that it's gonna be like
People are watching this instead
well,
of
what
TV.
I wonder is like because TLC is like 3 steps away from that guy being their main star.
Except
You know what I
they
mean?
edit him and they change things
Yeah,
and
of
they
course.
ruin it.
Of course.
There'd be commercial breaks.
Yeah.
I don't want
It
commercial
wouldn't just be a
breaks.
guy
already is on
feeding
YouTube.
raccoons on his porch. It'd be also him going to the store to help get supplies.
Yeah,
for
I don't
his-
want to see that. Just show me the raccoons and the cat.
Just play the hits, man.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
It is so much better than I can make it sound.
I don't doubt
But
that.
it's the heavy, thick Nova Scotian
Oh,
accent.
I bet it is.
And the really poor quality camera that doesn't move. It's there's just something about it that makes you feel like you're hanging out at your grandparents' place or something.
So getting back to Jason Kenney quickly.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of guys that feed their raccoons on the porch, because I'm assuming he would do a similar thing. Because his latest action is like, like I'm doing it, but I'm not. Because like a majority, like he's not affecting a vast majority of the population. It's like you can't play hockey, don't have parties. That's what he did.
He's doing the most
And the
limp
people who
dick
love
thing
sports
he can
are
do.
angry about
It's
that.
still called something.
So they're gonna shut down sports, but not schools.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, you don't need sports that bad.
Well, but it's that's what I'm talking about. It's like the certain type of person that's like, it isn't about them. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
It's like this whole thing isn't about me. That's not who's being talked about right now.
Yeah.
Me is different, and I want to play hockey.
Yeah.
And that whole mentality of me is different.
I don't have
is a
it.
problem.
And Bobby doesn't have it, so I think we're good. Well, you don't know if you have it. You don't know if Bobby doesn't have it.
Yeah, literally.
Well, they
Yeah.
probably don't
Asymptomatic
care
is the
if
point.
Bobby has it
Oh, yeah.
either.
No, it's
If you don't believe
it's
it
more
exists.
ego
I
than
think
that.
there's
It's
a certain
Superman
extent of
version.
people who, even if they had it, they wouldn't care. And they're not going to say that proudly, but I do think that those people exist, where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever, I've got a cough. I'm going to play anyway.
But they're saying it from the Superman scenario, because those people are never going to view themselves as
Weak enough
that
to get it.
0.01% or 0.1%
And-
that might die from it, right? Like
So
they're going to view
they're going to be
themselves.
stoked to spread it around, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got it, and I was fine. See, it's nothing."
Well, Trump
Meanwhile,
was a
Grandma
good
did.
example
Trump
of that
did that.
because
Yeah,
he thought it was
exactly.
nothing, and then all of a sudden now he was Superman and thought, like, you can see pure ego through that man, right?
Yeah,
Like he was supposed to win, and therefore he'll keep fighting legal battles because that's just he is Mr. Hero. So the majority of the population that's like the rebellious version, that's them.
Yeah.
It's not the people that are trying to be empathetic and worried about those around them, so they're willing to isolate themselves. Those are not the people that rebel. That's one of the reasons that I find the Antifa thing really fascinating. Because that type of person is not usually a person that is like the call to action kind of person.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're like more, I don't know, reclusive usually. They're less gregarious.
Well, I think it stimulates community too, right? Like it's a belonging thing.
A lot of people are really hunting for belonging
Yeah.
and for meaning.
Yeah.
And some of these
This is
movements
post-religious
Yeah, it's catching
Western.
on,
movement
man.
is a call to arms.
Yeah.
Post-religious
you're not wrong.
Western world is desperately seeking religion,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
and we're finding it in dangerous ways, right?
We have a generation of soldiers with no war.
Yeah, really.
You know, really.
Yeah.
So
People who
say-
don't believe in real war, but they still are like hungering.
I said this on a podcast a few weeks ago.
movement.
Say we get rid of all these problems, we're still going to want to fight.
Of course.
Yeah.
So now instead of fighting wars outside, we're fighting wars inside, right? And we're othering each other. So like all of a sudden, Scott's wearing a shirt I don't like, and now he's my enemy.
Yeah, naturally.
And Kevin's wearing a shirt Scott doesn't like, and he wants to kill Kevin.
Yeah. The small
Some-
nipple people are going to attack the pancake nipple people.
A few printed
Like-
words on a shirt is all it takes. A MAGA hat is all it takes for me to know I need you to die, or you're the problem. You're destroying the world.
Yeah.
Even if we could sit here on the couch
For
together.
example, if we're pro-maskers and we saw a couple of people walking in the street that both were wearing
It's on.
anti-mask T-shirts.
It's on.
Yeah. We're going to be like, oh, look at those pieces of crap.
Yep. That's all it takes to other.
Yeah.
This
It
is-
doesn't take much.
This is why I think psychedelics are important. I know I keep saying it literally every week, but it's just like we have to be able to start seeing
You're
each other
like at
better.
the point of psychedelics are paying you to be here.
Yeah, big psychedelic is
Big
funding
psychedelics
me.
are paying Kevin.
He just
to
keeps
talk.
pushing this narrative. I don't understand.
Those
I'm
150
sponsored by the
people you're
Grateful
reaching
Dead
every
acid.
week. There's a chance that 10 of those people that are watching the podcast might bite.
Brought to you by psilocybin.
Well, that was odd. Just for a 5-minute spot at the end of the podcast.
At the end of a 100 viewer podcast.
Yeah.
But like, this is where I kind of view it as like we can't really seem to fight our biology. You know what I mean? Like we are an animal. Our animalness seems to like doing things in a certain way, and I think we have certain substances that are here that allow us to kind of get a break away from some of those things, and I think that hopefully, as Canada may prove, that when we start introducing these things into normalized society or normal conversation, I hope our conversations start to get a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that they just start to be a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more like, hey, I understand why you're saying these things. Like, I understand why.
I mean, I think we're a long way off.
This is his skeptical face.
Yeah.
When he's going,
Yeah. Yeah. When I hear you guys sometimes just so idealistic about humans.
well, so
I view it as like,
we don't expect it to happen, but I can still project my hopes and wishes
You
on
can-
the world.
I
you can
actually
hope-
do expect it to happen.
I
think
maybe one day.
Well, I think you get to a place because I always think in terms of like the MAD thing, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, like whatever a cause can be that a majority of generic population can get behind is going to be something that we widely accept. That's why seatbelts became a thing. That's why it's automatic driving cars. I think that's an inevitability because it's just going to be the amount of lives saved is going to be worth it in the view of the public sphere. And I think psychedelics, in terms of the way it relates to depression and anxiety, I think the numbers are going to be of an amount, both in terms of negative, like I think the amount of people suffering from depression and anxiety, and if we start actually looking at the amount of death associated with them.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Literally everyone.
Literally everyone in some degree. So then all of a sudden studies start coming out in terms of evidence that shows that these things actually help in a way. It's going to be of an amount
How many years?
that is hard to ignore. I'd say 5.
5?
5 before it's because it's already starting to get prescribed now.
Yeah, we're getting
Right?
there.
But
It's still pretty experimental, though. I think your doctor's gonna give you. Oh yeah, go get some psilocybin from the
In
pharmacy.
BC right
okay,
now,
so here's
absolutely.
one.
Really?
When I was growing up, my mother, she must have smoked pot a little bit when I was growing up, but now she smokes it all the time, and it's cool,
Yep.
right? But she felt like she had to hide it.
Yep.
So how long before mushrooms are one of those?
Dude, it's way faster
I
than
mean,
you think.
in the sphere of people that I associate with,
Sure.
no one's hiding mushrooms.
No,
but-
and I wouldn't either, like
Yeah.
in my sphere, but we're not on the typical end of things.
I know a lot of people that now know about MDMA therapy.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you can take the word therapy and put it into it, all
It
of a sudden,
It
legitimizes
feels
it.
harmless all of a sudden.
and again, the results are crazy. The results are crazy good to a problem that they don't understand. So it's one of those like, I think within 5 years, maybe the COVID thing has messed it up because it has pushed back a lot of the testing. But I think within 5 years, you start to see it where people are not getting prescribed Wellbutrin anymore. They're getting a microdose of psilocybin.
Or
I
at least,
think-
or at least trying that before they go into barbiturate.
I think if we ever needed help more, or we've never needed help more than we do now, with all of our current problems as a species,
And no outlet for it.
and it's just getting worse and worse by the day.
Yeah.
If ever it could happen, the time is now.
Yeah. Well, and again, I just think that information moves too fast now. So if it took 50 years to get pot here, it's going to take 5 to get psilocybin. That's my thinking. Because we are so fast with this stuff now. But at the same time, I do see things where it's real slow. Like they were talking about vitamin D back in March. And now there's articles coming out saying, hey, maybe you should supplement with vitamin D. It's like, what? Where have you been? This has been a thing. Vitamin D and zinc for a long time. Why is it only now that it's coming out?
They probably have to really hammer it back and forth before they put their word out.
Until they get
right?
a study.
Right.
Yeah.
And they had that one study which was large amounts of vitamin D next to no amount of vitamin D, and it seemed to work better.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it's like, but we know that vitamin D deficiency is a bad thing. We know that your
Just all
immune
the
system
time.
is
All the time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole reason we have a cold and flu season because you're inside. You don't get vitamin D.
And the same with zinc. You hear people talking about TRT. I'm like, I mean,
Try zinc first.
At first, try even 20
But
micrograms or
it's-
milligrams or 20 units of zinc.
The problem with
will,
the
get you
medical
started, and
community
that's a teeny dose.
And
is
then
they
you'll be
can't
producing
make
it.
they can't make
yeah, that is
recommendations
natural.
that they know they should make
Yeah.
because it's all politicized.
And
it's
they-
like
you
they were
can get
saying
sued.
that same podcast I was talking about with that Christopher Christakis or whatever his name is, where they can't recommend physical activity
Yep.
because
Yeah,
someone
exactly.
might not be able to exercise.
Someone's going to twist their ankle or someone.
and now they're legally responsible for that
Yeah.
person injuring themselves.
Yeah, that was
Right.
what my doctor always used to tell me is like, oh yeah, lots of people find some benefit from it. I can't tell you that. I
Yeah.
can't tell you to go do it.
You can't tell people obvious things because of the politics and the gymnastics of it.
Yep.
It's all just you're dodging tripwires or something.
Well, in the U.S., you're dodging legal suits.
Yeah.
It's
That's the crazy part.
Oh, we're drowning in bureaucracy.
If only I could tell you what you need to know so
I
that
know.
nothing bad would happen to you.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. And I mean, like, we just got to start being honest about it. Like, we just have to. But we're not right now.
No.
It sucks.
No, there needs to be more honesty for sure.
Yeah.
And even in a bureaucratic world, couldn't we say that it's very likely that exercise would help you with this, and this? Here's a disclaimer. You must exercise within your own limits. There are physical risks that come this. If you are running next to a cliff, that could increase your chances of death. Like, I don't know how silly.
Avoid sharp cliffs.
Yeah, like how silly do you have to make the disclaimer to be good enough to suit our bureaucratic system?
It would have to be
It's a personal
80 pages
accountability
long to include
mean-
every possible outcome that could be bad.
I'd prefer less lawyers, not more lawyers, but here we are.
Yeah.
I just think you should have a clause that says, unless you are stupid about it.
Yeah.
Like, if you were stupid about it, what are we supposed to
See,
do?
you've just made a problem. Because even if you type the word stupid on TikTok, for example, no one will see your comment in response. Like, if I call someone stupid,
Right, yeah,
it won't even be seen by people.
Yeah.
That word is no good. You can't call people stupid.
Well, anything clinical, right?
Yeah.
Because stupid is technically a clinical term.
It's offensive, so you can't do that.
Wow.
You get yourself in hot water for
Well,
saying
what we're
that.
going to end up getting now is we're going to end up getting the nerfed version of something. So a nerfed TikTok where there's no stupid, and then you're going to get an unleashed version of TikTok.
Unnerfed?
Yeah, unnerfed.
Like you said about that parlor, which I still haven't looked into.
I unearthed a new
Which?
TikTok.
Parlor.
Oh, yeah.
I still haven't looked into it.
I deleted it because it was
Did
just
you?
one of those like, yeah, okay, this is exactly
here
what I
it
thought it
is,
was going to
yep.
be.
I haven't looked in. I don't need any more though.
It's going to be the same route. Like, it'll get worse and worse, and then they'll have to put in restrictions, and then someone else will develop another one that's no restrictions, and then, it's all the same.
Yeah.
We're just doing the same dance.
People are just desperately crying out for, like, people in social media desperately want something else that isn't Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, it's Instagram is the best because there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they kill anything that.
Yeah, anything that
comes
gets.
up.
Look, they took Reels, right? They're
Yep.
trying to kill TikTok.
Yep.
They bought all the rights to the music in Canada from
Yep.
TikTok.
It's hilarious.
Because I had all the music options on TikTok at first, but now they're all gone.
Yeah.
Because Instagram owns them now.
It's Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. It's Facebook that owns it.
That's
it's not
the
Instagram.
trick.
Well, yeah.
Instagram doesn't know anything.
Instagram
That's
by
the scary
Facebook.
part.
Yeah. Facebook group. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
We make fun of people that are on Facebook. It's like, we're just using the same thing.
That's, I think, one of the best parts about YouTube is that they're not owned by Facebook. Like, 'cause
But
it's-
they're owned by Google instead. Congratulations.
yeah, I guess. one for
YouTube,
another.
as weird as it is, I find a little more fair.
Yeah, I would agree.
Like, it seems like things, they get the traction they get, and there isn't as much, like, I mean, there probably is, but at the same time, it doesn't feel as unfair in a way to me so far.
I would agree.
Instagram feels really like you could pay for this ad. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I
Goodness.
mean? Like,
Well, but
it's,
they have no other revenue streams, right? Like, Google has made it so it's like, no, you can advertise on our platform. Absolutely, just pay us,
yeah.
and we'll pay them a little. You know what I mean? Whereas Instagram doesn't have that. You can't like go through a makeup ad to get to someone's post. You know what I mean?
Well, you do, though. When you're scrolling through your thing, there's ad after ad after ad.
Well, they got,
That
if you have a
is
business
happening now,
account,
right?
now
Yeah.
your ads have been moved to where your notifications used to be, like
Right,
your
yeah.
shop icon. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want any of this crap. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Just
the
let me
shit?
see my notifications.
Yeah. No, that's
That's nonsense.
they're
Yeah.
just trying to make money, man. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's a hard thing to develop an app that is based on freedom, and then be like, hey, let's also make billions of dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a little bit of money, a lot of money. And here's the scary part about the fact that the social media stuff still ties into and is dictated by the financial whims of the stock market,
Yeah.
which demand not just growth but exponential
Exponential growth.
Because if you want to grow minimum 6% per year, your incomes need to grow. And like when we say 6% per year, that's like a business that is not seeing new investment.
Yeah, that's bad. 6% is bad.
6% per year is like keeping up with the market.
Yeah.
So
You're just making ends meet.
so how do you take a giant model like Google, Instagram, etc., and then grow it by 20% per year? Not just in stockholder price, but also in revenue, also in cash flow,
Ask Elon Musk.
Yeah, goodness.
Dude.
He's the second richest man in the world now.
Well, but he's just doing him.
I
You
know.
what I mean, he's just rocking
and
and rolling.
he's going to be the richest man in the world next week.
I don't know. Bezos has got a pretty good handle on that.
Well, COVID's doing all the right things for Bezos.
Yeah, it's true.